We'll call the Board of Equalization back in order. Shannon.
Good morning. So we have 4 property owners that are here right now. And I know one other one is coming, but I told him 11 o'clock, so it'll be a while before he gets here. So on your schedule, if you look at the schedule in order that we had it scheduled to begin with, the first person on the schedule is Pat Vidal, and the next one is Commissioner Lassiter. And then all the way down through the schedule, there's a bunch of people on our schedule that are not coming in. I would suggest we deal with those after everybody that's already here. So the people that are here don't have to wait. Okay, so what we typically do is the property owner comes up and says what he wants, and then an appraiser from my office will give the perspective of our office and talk about the value, and the board can ask questions and make a decision. So, you want to start with Mr. Pat Vidal?
I understand that he'll be on Zoom at 10:30.
No, he is right there.
Oh, okay. Okay, sure.
Say, Shannon, quick question. You said he's first. Where's he at on this? I don't.
Right, the very first one at 8 o'clock.
The 19th. Okay. I'm a couple days early.
I got this.
Yeah, that's it, just an email.
Let's do it.
And then this thing here.
16th.
Okay,
Right on top.
it's just this,
So it's in your packet. This one, these packets. Nope, right there. That's just 19. Did you mix up your packet? You did. You go, Pete. What did you do with your packet?
Let's see. That's 13th. Yeah, I'm missing a packet.
Missing it?
Gonna be hard to follow without a packet.
Down in here? Not like I haven't done this before.
all you got is this, right? For him,
No.
This big. What's that thing?
Got that page and this, yeah.
well, you do have this.
Yeah.
After-
Yeah, you don't have that? We're working on it.
Saying it.
Up there.
I'm gonna go with him.
Good check.
It's been discovered.
There you go. Thank you, John. Deb.
All set, Ryan?
We're ready to go.
Okay. We're ready.
Start with Mr. Vidal.
Ask you to come up and identify yourself, and
I have a handout for you.
Thank you.
Don't panic by what you see here. I'm gonna go through it real fast.
thank you.
This will show you that I researched this thoroughly.
Thank you, sir. Get it?
My name is Pat Vidal. I live at 3926 Forest Park Circle. Thank you for hearing me. I'm here today because there was a recent sale in my subdivision that caused me great concern. I own the smallest house in the Forest Park subdivision. I also own one of only two houses in that subdivision that have a two-car garage. All the other houses have three-car garages. It's a very nice subdivision. There's nice houses in this subdivision. But again, mine is the smallest. I think it's probably the lowest quality house in the subdivision. And again, it only has a two-car garage. The subdivision's lots are such that they really don't have good views like the Upper Carriage Hills area has. You know, we look at, you know, we have trees in our backyard, we have some distance between the houses, but we don't have the panoramic views that a lot of lots in Carriage Hills have. And that's one of the things I'm going to address. The other house in this subdivision that has the two-car garage recently sold at the end of 2019. It was originally listed and assessed for somewhere in the high $500,000. It didn't sell. It didn't sell. They lowered the price. It didn't sell. It didn't sell. They lowered the price some more. After 15 months, it finally sold for $514,000. I think it went from like 585 or something like that to 514,000. Based on that, I originally thought that with the assessed value and with the asking price of that house, that my house was fairly valued. But when it sold for only 514,000 and it took 15 months to do that, I became concerned. I talked to the realtors involved, and they said one of the primary reasons it didn't sell and it took so long to sell was because it only had a two-car garage. Most people, if they're going to buy a $400,000 to $500,000 house, want it to have a three-car garage at least. Okay, so I discovered what it sold for after the appeal deadline passed last year, so I'm appealing it this year. Now, what I've discovered in doing my research is that equalization, first of all, does not differentiate between lots with real good views and lots without good views. For example, a lot at the top of Carriage Hills that's 0.75 acres, like mine is, will have the same value as a lot down at the bottom by Wonderland Drive, such as mine. Now, I also discovered that only Carriage Hills and Forest Park subdivision have a higher value for lots than all the other subdivisions in the Carriage Hills area. Now, if you look at the end, on the last page of your handout, you'll see a map with some black dots and red dots on it. My house is the red dot in the middle. The other red dot is a house at the top of Carriage Hills. All of these lots, all of the dots are 0.75 acre lots. Okay, my lot is assessed for $94,900, as is the Carriage Hill lot. All the other lots that you see are assessed for $73,800. Now you look, there's two dots right next to my house. Those lots are assessed for $73,800. So my first objection is that my house is my land is being overassessed. I think it should be assessed for $73,800 minus something because I have a 25-foot drainage easement going across my lot. So I think I should deserve some break for that. Now, the next thing I object to is the quality of the house that they're rating my house. The houses in Forest Park subdivision are, like I say, exceptional houses. Their quality rating is a lot of them are excellent. A lot of them are very good plus. They had my quality rating originally at very good. And so I invited Derek to come over and look at my house and say, here's the house. Now show me, what you think is, very good about it and stuff. But we decided that it's not very good. He downgraded it to very good minus. I have a list of things at the bottom of the front page of things that my house does not have that houses that are rated very good minus do have. So I'm thinking my house doesn't even have very good minus quality. I think it has good plus quality. And you can peruse that list just to see what I don't have. So far, my lot is being assessed too high. My house is being rated too high of quality. Now let's get into the value of the building. On the second page, I list a whole bunch of properties. These properties are all, the top properties are all properties that have a 3-car garage and have very good views. And if you look over on the right where those shaded areas are, where it says average, that shows the average value of these houses as they are assessed and as they sell. Now you'll see that the average sale value is significantly higher than the average assessed value. My explanation for that is equalization does not put a premium in their assessments on lots with good views. Buyers do. So they're buying these houses for a lot more than these houses are being assessed. Now you look at the houses below that have the 3-car garages also, but only good views, and you see that the assessed values are about the same as the sale values. The next page is for 2-car garage properties, such as mine. It's the same thing. If they have a good view, they sell for a lot more than they're being assessed. If they have an exceptional view. If they only have a good view, I'll explain what I mean by a good view, they sell for about the same thing as they're being assessed. A good view, when I say a good view on this chart, to me that's a view that just has, you're amongst trees and you have some distance between your house. You have a nice setting, but you don't have the panoramic view of the Black Hills, or you don't have the panoramic view of West Rapid City or the Badlands, which many of the houses up on top of Carriage Hills have. Okay, if you see on page 2, at the bottom of the page, these are the comparables that would be comparable to my house. 2-car garage, not a good view. Some of them are rated very good, some of them are rated good plus, some of them are rated good. The 4400 Forest Park Court is the house that sold, that brought me to where I am today. And you can see that it sold for $123 a square foot. That's time adjusted up to November of 2020, which is when they set the assessed value. Okay? So on average, those houses sold for $119 a square foot. The best one, which is the one in my neighborhood, about 2 houses from me, sold for $123 a square foot. The next page shows just the Forest Park subdivision properties, or some of them. I showed some properties that are rated excellent for their quality. You can see what their average assessed value is, very high.
Mr. Chair, Pat, I think you've lost some of us because these pages aren't marked. So when you say page 2, I went to page 2 and I couldn't follow you, so.
The second
just
page,
I'm just
the
saying.
third page, I'm sorry.
This is a lot of information.
I know,
And if
I
we're
know
not
it, and I'm
following
sorry.
it, we're all gonna be
Okay,
like deer.
I'm on the third page now.
Let's just go back to the one you just talked about.
Go ahead.
On Forest Park.
Yes,
Okay, so that's the second, or the third to the last page.
third
So
to
I'm on Forest Park, and it says Forest Park, 3-car garage, excellent quality, average assessed value $158 a square foot. Are we on the same page here?
yes.
Okay.
Okay, I
What was the point
apologize.
that you were just
I
making
didn't
now?
have room to put page numbers on these things.
I want everybody to understand what you're saying.
Okay, are we all on the right page?
I'm on Forest Park.
Okay. Okay, I want you to go down to, we don't need to look at the properties that have excellent quality. We don't need to look at the properties that have very good views, because those don't relate to my property at all. I just put them in there for your information. The next section, or the section that says Forest Park, 2-car garage comparables. Is that what it says? Forest Park 3-car garage comparables with good views. You see they average $130.65. You see that?
I got that.
Per square foot? And the only one that sold is one, that McKee Ford's owner used to live in on Wonderland Drive. It's right across the street from Forest Park. And that sold for $126 a square foot. The last section where it says Forest Park 2-car garage comparables, good views, this would be the section that my house would fall under. And you can see that its average assessed value is only for the one house that's there besides mine, $126, and it's average, and it's sold for $123 a square foot. Okay, on the next page. What I did here is I took the 3-car garage properties with good views and the 2-car garage properties with good views, and I adjusted them. I adjusted their sale prices and assessed values like an appraiser would. For example, if it's a 3-car garage, I took $20,000 off for the third garage stall to make it equivalent to my 2-car garage house. I adjusted it for the square footage. I adjusted it for the number of bedrooms. I adjusted it for the number of bathrooms. I adjusted it for the number of fireplaces. But anyway, if you go down to the bottom where it says overall average, it's shaded. You'll see that the assessed value of these houses adjusted would make my house worth $441,000. And the sale prices of the ones that sold, adjusted for time and for the other features, would make my house worth $419,000. Then that's just for the two-car garage properties. For both the 3-car and the 2-car garage properties, the overall average would be 441,000 by the assessed values that equalization used, and it would be 428,200 by the sale prices that the ones that sold it used. Then you can see what the adjusted prices would be for the ones that were just in Forest Park. So based on those numbers, I took the average of the overall Forest Park assessed value, average, and the overall, the Forest Park overall average sale value, average. I took the average of those two numbers, and that would be, and I rounded it up to 437,000. That's what I think my house is worth based on the comparable sales and what equalization has things assessed at.
Mr. Chair, okay, so you're saying 437.
437.
What are you saying the land, what do you think the land's worth, Pat?
I took $73,800, which is what all those black dots equal for my size lot, the black dots on that one map. I say my lot should be treated no differently than all the other subdivisions in the area.
Okay, so 73 what?
73.8,
And the reason,
and I took off a little bit because of the easement, the drainage easement I have going across, so I came up with a figure of 70,800.
okay, so if I got this straight, it's assessed for 94.9.
They have it assessed for 94.9, which is what any other lot of, that's 0.75 acres up on the top of Carriage Hills.
So to
Could be assessed
summarize,
for.
the reason you think it's worth lower would be you don't have the views that the other ones do.
Correct.
You got a 25-foot easement that's encumbering the property,
Right.
and it's a smaller lot.
No, all of these lots are,
Okay,
that I
okay.
used on the map are 0.75. Okay, what equalization does, and I'll go through this again, try to understand this. They will look at the mass of sales of lots in the area. They will say, okay, this lot may have sold for $160,000 because it has a really good view. And this lot sold for $75,000 because it doesn't have a very good view. But we're not going to take into account the fact that the good view lot should be assessed for what it sold. We're just going to take the average, and we're going to say a 0.75 acre lot is worth $94,900.
Pat, there's a lot of variables, not just comparable sales, that make the bottom line for our assessment. So it's,
I understand that,
Right.
but they don't use them unless somebody brings them to their attention. You have to come up and complain like I am to get it to change.
Yeah.
I know size is one of the variables,
yeah,
but I'm using
Yes.
I'm using all 0.75 acre lots.
So just, what was the value that you are recommending for yourself?
$70,800.
No, I mean, the total value.
or
437,000.
I thought you said 431 or
No,
441.
437.
Okay, so 437, what is that per square foot?
$125.
Okay, so that 125, if I wanted to sit there and look at the rationale on that, I would go to that page.
Go to page 2, the second page. Go to the second page of your handout.
Okay, and that's where your support for the
And
125 is.
look at the 2-car garage, good view properties down at the bottom.
Okay, if I'm looking at that, the average assessed is $121.11, is that correct? That's 2-car garage.
Or no, go to the third page, I'm sorry.
Okay, so the
second
third page is
second here.
$126.73. Yeah. And the average sale price
No,
was,
the third page, see where, or at the bottom of the third page is the category 2-car garage comparables, good views.
says $126.73, correct?
Ron, I think you were right the first time when you said 121.11. He said third
Oh,
page, but he
that's the
skipped you
fourth
forward.
page. That's the fourth page, Ron.
Okay, well, I don't know if the first page is the first page or the second, but
Okay.
I just want to be on the same page, that's all.
Okay.
Okay, so 125 square foot, that kind of makes sense.
For two-car garage comparables with good views, the average sale price is $119.27. The average assessed value is $121.11.
Based on his numbers.
Yeah, this is extracted from actual sales.
Yes.
That you've looked at and you've
Yes.
researched.
Yes.
And so the assessed value was 520,100. Was
Yes,
the,
that's what they started at. They've lowered it a little bit.
so the 520 isn't what it was. This is a recommendation from the board. The 520,100.
They're recommending 500. They'll be recommending 511.
Okay. Thank you.
Now, let me give you an example. The house that sold in my neighborhood, the other two-car garage house, it was assessed for $599,900. It sold for 514. Well, they've got it assessed again for 583, even though it's sold for 514. See, so that's how high they have these properties assessed over what they're selling for. And so that's why I'm concerned.
Well, I mean, you got an awful lot of information there. And
I
know you're-
understand that, and I'm sorry I have so much.
I know
Go
you're
ahead,
pretty
ask
thorough.
questions.
So Chair, sir, how much would you sell your house for if you put it on the market right now? How much you're gonna sell your house for? 400 and,
No, this says $437,000.
so that's how much if you were gonna sell your
Yes.
house right now,
I
you,
don't know how I couldn't justify asking any more. If I've been in the real estate business, I'd have to show people comparables. The comparables I'd show them would be those that are on the first, let's see, the third page.
So,
And
Pat, you're saying that if you sold your house and somebody was to buy your house and they hired a real estate appraiser to appraise your house and they looked at the most comparable sales, which you feel are here, these would be the sales that they would have to use for financing purposes to justify the value of your house.
yes, they would most definitely use the other two-car garage house that's in my subdivision. And that's one of my comparables.
Other questions, Mr. Vidal? None? Okay. Thank you, Pat.
Yes, thank you.
thank you, sir. You can sit if you'd like, sir. Let him,
I'm fine.
okay,
Unless you want me to say?
if you would. Thank you, sir.
Right, I'm gonna hand out, some paperwork I have here. You need to identify yourself.
Thank you.
And good morning. My name is Derek Dalen, and I am an appraiser with Pennington County Equalization. The subject property that we are discussing has a tax ID of 47396 and a physical address of 3926 Forest Park Court. It is owned by Pat and Karen Vidal, and it is located in the southwest corner of Rapid City in the Carriage Hills, Forest Park Court neighborhood. I am recommending that the board uphold the 2021 assessed value of $511,500. The subject property is 4 bedrooms, 3.5 bathrooms. It is 1,992 square feet above grade and has a basement area of 1,504 square feet, 1,420 square feet of which is finished. There is a 640 square foot attached garage, and the home was built in 2000, and it is on a 0.75 acre lot.
Derek, can I stop you a second?
Yes.
You said you're recommending the current value of 511,500 be upheld. I do not see that number on our sheets. I see 520,100.
If you read, they changed it. He changed it on his paper here, sir.
I said 511.
You change, sometimes they come up as appraisers or, equalization, and they change it on
Okay, I do not see that sheet.
the one he just handed us,
Yeah, it should be on the front
On the back
page.
side of this?
right on the front, sir. Sometimes they come up and they work with the people or do something different when they come up because based on certain things they found afterwards.
And if you don't mind me asking real quick, in 2020, the assessed value was 514, is that correct?
Yes. Okay.
Okay, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, that is just fine. And comparable sales of the subject property range in year built from 1979 to 2003. And above grade square footage ranges from 2,836 on the high end through 1,696 on the lower end. And basement square footage ranges from, again, 1,856 on the higher end to 1,012 square feet. And basement finished, the amount ranges from 1,731 through 976 square feet. And with the comparable sales, the garage square footage ranges from 622 through 568 square feet. And the prices from the comparable sales, what they sold for, ranges from 420,000 through 699,900. And what I focused on with the comparable sales was finding similar ones that had a two-car garage. And like Mr. Vidal mentioned, an on-site review of the property was completed. That resulted in the quality being changed, like he mentioned, from very good to very good minus. That explains the difference between that initial assessed amount of 520,000 versus what I am recommending of 511,500.
Can I ask you a question, sir?
Yes.
You put market value comp 497,900. Why? If you assessed it basically, or you think it's or should be a 511, why would you do a market value comp select? Is that
What
less?
that market value comp select is that's based on those 5 comparable sales on that sheet.
Okay.
And what that is you look at the sale price of those 5 comparable sales, as well as the weighted estimate in the subject column, then the market average MRA value in the subject column as well. And those are a total of 7 numbers. And to come up with that market value comp select, what you do is you remove the 2 highest and the 2 lowest numbers, and then you take the average, and that gives you that 497,900, that market value comp select number. It's another figure that we use and that's helpful on this sales comp sheet to help us see if our value can be supported and if it's appropriate.
And Rod, also the third or the second comp.
Mm-hmm.
Did it sell for 463, 230?
The second comp sold for 514,600 in December of 2019.
Mr. Chair, did Pat get to see this? I would like for Pat to look at this and see what his comments are.
Where, yes, I did share this with Mr. Vidal, yes.
They get those.
Okay.
So Derek, do you take into consideration, the fact that it's got a drainage easement through it?
That is something that I took into account. There is that 25-foot major drainage easement. And the setbacks for this property, it's zoned as low-density residential. There's a 20-foot setback from the front of the property. So there's a 5-foot difference between the setback and that drainage easement. That And for that reason, that 5 feet, I didn't feel it affected the overall value just because a lot of that space falls within the setback required as well.
So is it, sorry, so that's part of the square footage of how much land he has, did you include, or is that you saying you didn't include the full range because of the 25-foot setback? You did it by square footage by adding just that extra 5 feet? Is that
Where,
what you're
right,
trying
I
to say?
looked at the setback required by zoning and the drainage easement, a majority of which falls in the same space.
And that's, okay, so that's in his land square footage, or a drainage easement is not in his land
It
square
is, it
footage
is
for
in
sale?
Mr. Vidal's property, yes.
Meaning in his property, but in the square footage, meaning when he does a sale price, he gets,
Yes.
okay.
It's my understanding that it is included in that 0.75 acres.
Okay.
That drainage easement, that's gonna be included, yes.
Okay, and any of these other properties have drainage easements or anything on them that you did market or comparables on?
The drainage easement that impacts Mr. Vidal's property, there's 3 or 4 other properties on the same side of the street as him, none of which have sold. So I did not consider that drainage easement when looking at comparable sales, just since it was limited to those specific properties along the side that were close to his home, none of which had sold.
What are the sale dates on the comparable sales? I don't see those.
I don't either.
The sale base?
When those sales sold, I'd like to know when they sold. Did they sell in 2020 or 2019 or 2017?
In that, on the sales comp sheet, there should be a sale date line.
Oh, I see it, I see it.
Comp one sold in June of 2019. The second comp in December of 2019. The third comp in December of 2019 as well.
Okay, I see those now. Going
Okay.
back to the subject property,
Mhm.
what's the gross floor area above grade?
For the subject property,
1992.
yep, yeah, it's 1,992 square feet. That's the above grade square footage.
So then your number of 511, 500,000, you're basically saying $256 a square foot times 1,992?
Yes, the per square foot price above grade is that 256 figure, yes.
And I move over the comp one, that's 197. Comp two is 181. Comp three, I don't know much about these. I'm just looking at paper. That's 260. Next one's 247. And so Mr. Vidal's saying, if I hear him right, he's saying that he feels his quality of construction is inferior to some of these sales. Is that?
It could be inferior to some of them, as well as superior to some. Comparable sale one and comparable sale three are in good plus and good quality. And then sales 2, 3, and 2, 5, and 4 are very good minus like his, and the fourth sale is very, very good plus. So there is a range of qualities in there, superior and inferior to Mr. Vidal's property.
Chair, I'd like to make a motion to uphold the 511
I think
on
that
this
can pass.
property.
Got a motion. Is there a second?
I'll make a second. I'll substitute. I'll second
Take
the
a
substitute motion.
Huh?
What?
You want a substitute motion? Is that what you said?
Right.
Nobody wants the 511, 500?
There was no second on it. What's the substitute?
230 a square foot times 1,992.
Based on what?
based on what Pat has showed us here and based on these comparable sales.
Do I have a second for the substitute motion?
I'd like to know the total for.
Yeah, I gotta make the math real quick.
Yeah, what would that be total, like land and?
If I did my math correct, that's 458, 160. Is that right? Did I hear the numbers right?
That's what I came up with too, that's correct.
450.
Mr. Chair, can Pat
Chair-
speak or?
Yeah, I have do I have a second for the substitute motion though first?
Oh.
Hearing none, substitute motion dies. Is there a second for the, original motion? Hearing none, there's no motion on the floor. Mr. Vidal, go ahead.
I just want to point out that 4 of his 5 comparables are on the top of Carriage Hills and have spectacular views.
Okay.
Chairman, so comp two actually is comparable. And some people, without being rude, Mr. Vidal, some people like views and some people don't. And I don't usually buy something if it's got a view, sir, but those are one of the variables, I guess, that we take into consideration. But I think comp two is very comparable and it sold for 514. So we can't compare the markets today compared to the last 3 years, of course. So we have to take that into consideration. But I think 511 is a pretty fair price at this point, based on, if you look, like I said, you want to see pretty close, look at comp two.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Roskinek.
a lot of people, the first thing they want when they buy something is the view. They look for location, and that location, a lot of those will have the view. So I have to disagree that I think a view is very paramount and I'm going to stick by my 230 a square foot. But I'll let Pat speak.
Well, if you look, if you're willing to look at my numbers again, I show you what the value of that view is. You can, because I'll compare lots, I compare the price of the lots with good views or excellent views to the lots without good views, and the difference is about $15 per square foot.
So Pat, 4400 Forest Park Court doesn't have a good view?
No, it is not.
What's making the view so it's not good?
It's down low. It's by Wonderland Drive.
Okay, and you can't see a view on Wonderland Drive where he's at all?
You can see a view of the top of Corral School. To one side, the other side is a house. The front of the property is a house, and then the fourth side is a house. No, it's when I say a spectacular view, I mean a panoramic view of the Black Hills or a panoramic view of West Rapid City. The lower part of Forest Park subdivision does not have anything like that.
So, sir, is the view one of the comparables when you look at it? Tell me your first name one more time.
My name's Derek.
Derek, could you tell me what variables or what made this so? Basically, Pat understands what variables made this price to where it is. I mean, the market value and comparables, but what else? Like the decks and the square footage?
Where a bulk of the value is going to be in the square footage of the home itself. There's going to be value in, the decks, garage square footage, driveway, land value. That's all going to tie into the overall assessed value. And if I could touch on land value, when land values were determined in the Carriage Hills Forest Park Court neighborhood, they were based off of what a typical lot in the neighborhood would sell for. So there's lots that do have the views. Looking at those sales, those were not used or placed as much weight on for setting land values in the neighborhood as a whole. So when these land values were set, they were more what a typical typical lot in the neighborhood was.
Because it wasn't based on a view, based on the land value and what that land actually and that square footage would be, and not, once you build the house, maybe the house might be worth more or something because of the view, but not the land value.
We're right, yeah. In order for our office to take views and different influences into account, it's handled on a case-by-case basis. So lots that have exceptional views, our office would have to determine that they do have that view, and then there would be an influence added to take that into account for the view on an individual basis. So lots that do have exceptional views, they would not be used to determine land values of lots that do not have exceptional views. They would be handled on a case by case.
So Pat, you said yours didn't have an exceptional view, but that comp two also at the 4,400 Forest Park didn't have a good view either, right?
That's correct.
So, and his sold for 514.
Yes, but his is about a lot of square feet more than mine.
Actually, on the comparables, it's not. Did you see that? Did you want to see that again?
Well, you need, he gives you the above grade square footage. You need to look at the total square footage of the house. It's about, what is it?
I mean,
It's 4,600 square feet versus 3,500 square feet.
And you got more land. Your year built is newer. Your, let's see, your garage area for cars is bigger. Your decks, let's see your decks. See what I'm saying? Some of your
Yes, but-
stuff is a lot bigger than his, and
But my dollar value per square foot is larger than what that property sold for per square foot.
Mr. Chair.
That takes into account those things.
okay.
I have to,
Commissioner
I have
Ostermeyer.
to agree with both, this Director of Equalization and Pat. I'm going to suggest a compromise. I'm going to go back. My $230 a square foot should be roughly a $50,000 deduction, Pat.
Much?
It'd be, okay, the $230 a square foot is my recommendation based on 1,992 square feet above grade.
Oh, that's
And I'm trying to
460.
take in the compensation for your
Okay.
inferior view and your 25-foot easement,
And that comes up to, what's the total?
258 or something.
458, 160.
458, 160.
458.
So I have a motion. Is there a second? I'll second that. Pardon me?
459.
Uh,
Our computer system rounds to the nearest.
okay, 458,200, that'd be the nearest hundred, is that,
The values are all rounded. It just makes it easier.
that be okay, Ron?
Yeah.
Okay for the second? That's me, yes. That's
Better
you.
than 520.
Okay, I've got a motion and a second. Is there further discussion on it?
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner LaCroy.
I'd make a substitute motion for 490,400, and the reason I come up with that is I'm minusing off, taking his land value down to 73.8 that he says it's worth, and that would take off 21,100 from the 511,500.
Second.
Got a motion and a second for a substitute motion, 490,000 even, is that
400. 490, 400.
490, 400?
Or
Further
490.
discussion?
What does that equate to per square foot, please?
Commissioner LaCroy?
I look for the math man.
Okay, 490 what?
490, 400.
Ballpark 245 square foot.
Okay, see, I use the total square footage of the house.
Well, no,
I don't know how to compare that with.
okay, so
They used above grade, I use the total square footage.
I'm just using what's on this sheet that we have. 1,992 square feet above floor, or above
Yeah,
grade.
that's above grade.
Okay.
Is there further discussion? I got a motion and a second to change it from the recommendation from equalization of 511,500 to 490,400. Hearing none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
No. Okay, we got a motion carried by a vote of 3-2. 490,400.
Thank you, Vidal, Mr. Vidal.
Next on our list was Commissioner Lassiter. Or do you want to go with somebody that's in the audience, since he has to be here through the whole meeting anyways?
Would that be okay with you, Commissioner?
Absolutely. I mean, I have to be here anyway, so.
Let's go with somebody in the audience.
Okay. On our original schedule, Matthew and Catherine Connor are here. Our office has a recommendation on this. Do the Connors wish to speak?
No, we're just here to confirm.
Okay. So at least Don will step up, make a recommendation, and then we can move on to somebody else then.
You guys are satisfied with his recommendation or her recommendation?
Okay, look,
Good morning, Commissioners. Don Puckett,
morning.
Equalization Office.
give us 1 second here to find this.
Yeah,
The tax ID is 6460, if that helps.
no.
10 to 11 o'clock one?
So which one is it?
It's
Connor.
the Connors, Matthew and Catherine Connor.
6460.
There we go.
How far down is this in the packet?
It's way down there from all
It's
the,
about midway in the packet. It's past the Ridgestone. The Ridgestone takes up quite a bit.
Guys, the recommendation is satisfactory with the applicant. So I'll make the motion.
Let us find it first,
Okay.
please.
Yep,
Okay, there we go.
make the motion.
Has everybody
to
else got it?
Go with Don's recommendation.
Are we good? Okay. I have a recommendation to set the value at 294,800. That's 116,500 on the land and 178,300 on the structure.
294 what?
2948.
So move.
294.8.
294,800.
You're seconding it,
Oh,
LaCroix.
second.
I've got a motion by Commissioner LaCroix, second by Commissioner Adcock.
The other way around.
The way,
294.8.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Roskinick.
I totally agree with that, but I'd just like to know what the rationale was for lowering it, that's all.
It had been lowered by the local board, and I took a look at the condition of the home and the depreciation, and there's some drainage issues. This house, in that neighborhood, the houses tend to sit up high. This one actually sits down low in the drainage. So I was looking at those things and made an additional downward adjustment. The other thing is the sale of this home. A couple years ago, it was on the market for quite a long period of time with some issues and accounting for those things.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, folks. Thanks for coming in.
Any further questions? Now, we got a motion and a second. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion, opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
Just a couple of down on that schedule is Larry Noble. He's here.
Noble?
Yep. Larry and
Marcia?
Marcia Noble.
Was that further down in the packet?
Yeah.
It was on our schedule, it was just two down from Connors.
It's a couple of pages, because there's 5 appeals for like the John and Kathy LLC.
Yes. And we'll have a recommendation on that one
There's a John and
later.
Kathy, but like, there's 5 of those sheets, and then you get to it. However, I don't think I have it.
Kirby Trust.
There we go, finally.
There it is.
It's pretty close to the end.
Two sheets, is that what we'd have on it? Everybody find it?
I believe we're connected.
Okay,
Mr. Noble has some papers here.
okay,
Pictures and then some quotes.
okay. Mr. Noble, if you want to identify yourself and certainly present your information.
Good morning, my name is Larry Noble. I live at 801 Bel Air Drive, West City. And I'm here to see if we can come to some sort of a better agreement on what the evaluation of my property is. I had some comparables, which was given to me by Derek. And there's a couple of those that I wanted to refer to. My subject property, as you see, is on that line area that I got a little marked to the side is 0.17 acres. And if you move over to the right, you'll see the house on Windsor Drive at 0.19. That's just down the street from me. And then the next one, comp 3, is 0.28 acres, about 65% larger lot size. So if you go on down to the market average, it started out at 214. 214.5 is what it started at, and I met with Derek and we even came out to my property and they looked at it and they lowered it to 2012. But when I compare the 2012 with the house just down the street from me on Windsor at 173.1, I thought, that's like 26,600 less than what they're valuing my property at. And if you go to comp 3, which is pretty close, it was $4,200 more than what they were valuing mine at. But when you go down to the bottom of the page on my property, you'll see it's 1,638 square feet in a detached garage. But you go over to like Windsor, every one of the comparables has larger square footage on the house. First one, comparable 1, is 258 square feet larger. Comparable 2 on Windsor, just down the street, is 530 square feet larger. And the West Main Street, comparable 3, is 426 square feet larger. And it goes right on across. My point being that they're valuing my house with less square feet and a smaller lot size, very close to the one on West Main, if you're following me. Now, the one on Windsor has more square footage on the house, but it's only got a carport, whereas my house has less square footage and a garage, so I think it's more comparable. So they're using the market sales as kind of a driver in this, and I don't think they're putting enough emphasis on the condition of the property. had some photos. I think you guys are passing them around. It looks, it's pretty tough shape. You know, I think anybody that was looking to purchase a home would say, you know, it's going to take $35,000 to pull that back into where it's respectable condition for market value.
Mr. Noble, your land and then your house, how much do you think the land is worth and how much is the house? Property.
My opinion,
Yes, sir.
well, I'm not an expert, that's for sure. But it was at 2020 at 158, you know, and I'm thinking it's got to go up some. So between that 170, about that 175, to be honest with you.
So you think the house should be 175, but the land is worth how much are you splitting them out or are you just giving us an overall price?
Just an overall.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Noble.
I got a question. Did you see that they adjusted to 180? What do you think?
I'm sorry.
You said your original one was 214. He's adjusted it to 180.
I'll touch on that.
Oh, go ahead.
Or if you want to, Larry, you
No,
can.
you
It
go
doesn't
ahead, that's
matter.
fine.
The 180,000 amount, that was recommended by the Rapid City Local Board of Equalization.
Okay, that's what they recommended?
Yes.
And you're still recommending 214?
I'm recommending 199,700.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Roskinek.
so looking at the 5 comparable sales on a per square foot basis using the sale price of the sale divided by the gross building area above grade, the lowest sale is comparable number 2 at 174.85. And looking at those pictures, I would recommend we lean towards the lowest sale at 175 a square foot, which would be, if I did my math right, this is just my motion, be 191,100.
I'll second.
Got a motion and a second for 191,100. Further discussion? Go ahead.
I had one other point I just wanted to bring up. And this just came to light when I got, you know, Derek gave me this copy. So back in 2014, someone came around and was reassessing the property. The house was built in 1962. It sat there for 52 years. The size didn't change. But yet they increased the square footage of the house by 84 square feet without my knowledge. I didn't know about that until I just saw this here recently. So actually, I've been paying taxes, more taxes on 84 square feet that really isn't correct. Who changed that? How they arrived at that? I don't know. But so I talked to Derek about that, and he reviewed that and agreed. Somebody changed that and didn't notify me. So I've been paying more taxes for the past 6 years.
So it's actually showing 84 square feet more than what's actually there?
On this paper, if you'll see on the line, it says total living area, including the basement. They had the basement at 630 square feet. It's actually 546.
So Commissioner Roskinek, did you take into consideration, and you already took that 84 feet down off there?
That's correct. Where, yeah, that's something that Mr. Noble pointed out to me, so I removed that. It ended up being, 2 by the length of the house, 84 square feet of footage. And how we determined square footage, especially and that was in the basement as well. So we use a lot of houses, we don't get to see the inside of them. So we look at window placement and that, and what we can see from the outside to determine our square footage for above grade and below. So that was the reason for that change was, just looking at where the windows were on Mr. Noble's house. And that's been, and that has been corrected and will be correct.
Mr. Noble, how long have you owned the house?
We have been there for like 43 years. And, you know, I've never really complained about taxes until we just got this, new evaluation, and it was 35.59% increase originally when it started. That was about $800 a year more out of my pocket. That was exorbitant. So I'm just trying to get it down there where it's a reasonable amount. I mean, for the past 6 years, Derek ran the numbers. He came up that I had actually paid $91.97 more in taxes than I should have. That's one of his numbers. I ran some numbers not knowing the factors that they use, and just took the total structure value, tallied it all up, divided it by 6 years, and then divided that by the number of square feet that they had originally, and came up with a number, and then multiplied that times 84 square feet extra.
Mr. Noble, did they ever try to go in your house so they could actually get the right square footage?
I invited Derek in to come take a look at things, yeah.
About before the 6-year mix-up?
Like I said, I wasn't even aware of this till he provided me with this comparable, so.
Okay. So Shannon, do you, if there's a mix-up or if there's a square footage and any abatements or anything that come back later on for that mistake?
No, the house is assessed at market value. So every year we mail an assessment notice out with what we think is market value. The property owner gets to look at that and decide if the property is assessed at market value. Regardless of what we have for size or number of bedrooms and bathrooms or whatever, do we have market value on the property?
But aren't you doing comparables with square footages?
Yep. But like Derek says, we don't get in every house, so we have to make some assumptions. If nobody was home and didn't respond to the card we left on the door, we can only make an assumption.
So if you assumed wrong in those 6 years, there's no compensation.
Property owner didn't appeal because the market value looked right, regardless of what size we had.
Okay.
He didn't appeal, and once the appeal process is passed, we can't go back and make a change.
I'm not just asking this for me, it's for Mr. Noble.
So the pictures that we just looked at, are they representative of what the house is like right now?
It is right now, yeah. I
Mr.
guess
Chair.
my issue is that, I would have appealed something had I known it was incorrect.
Yes.
But I was never notified by mail or in person. But, if I was to run my numbers up over the 6 years, I'm coming up with over $600 extra in taxes. Now, Derek has told me there's no way for them to go back, even if it was the $91 figure, and, return that money, give me, a check back, or give me credit for current taxes, dude. I mean, I don't know how you guys would feel if I came and took $100 out of your bank account. You might not be too happy.
Commissioner LaCroix?
So Derek, your recommendation is what? What was that number again? Sorry.
My recommended 2021 assessed value is $199,700.
Ron's was
And-
191.7.
And Ron's was what?
191.7.
7?
91.
I thought it was 191.1.
I've got 191.1.
I'm sorry.
190. Is that the motion? Is there that motion on the floor?
Sorry.
Yes.
Okay.
So the difference would be roughly 8,600, and if you divide that by 1092, that'd be like $7.50 to $8 a square foot to bring the work on the what we saw some physical deficiencies on the house.
So your
Because I'm
estimate.
assuming that, it's hard to say what these other houses, what kind of condition they were
Yeah.
in. But based on this information, we got unit prices of 174 to 260. So I just thought I'd take the very lowest one that's here in your favor, and that was my motion.
Yeah, well, yeah, anything to help. I just know there's no comparison between my place and the one on West Main that was at 203.
We wish we could go out and look at every property, but unfortunately, we just
Yeah,
can't.
that's why I'm here.
That
I
saves you
sympathize with you
8,000
paying too
instead of 800.
Kara, did we have a second on that motion?
Yes,
Ron
Yes,
made?
Deb, but I have
Commissioner Adcock?
191.1.
Right.
Is that
okay,
right?
Okay.
Yes.
So I have a motion and a
apologize.
second for 191.1. Further discussion. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
I struggle with that.
Yeah. Yes.
Wow.
Oh, these pictures. Thought you meant like
That's a lot
all
of
that.
work.
Okay. Thank you, Derek. You're doing good, Derek.
Now what do we have,
You can
Shannon?
have it if you like, sir.
On the afternoon, we had
You can have it.
Hicks Revocable Living Trust. That was from 1 to 2:30. But Mr. Hicks is here, so he was willing to come in the morning instead of the afternoon.
In our afternoon pile?
Yes.
Yep.
And
Any idea where that is in the,
The next bucket.
The end of the 1 to 2:30 category.
no, I was looking for this one earlier and I'm.
And it's three of them.
3 pages?
Three
How down
appeals.
did you have to go?
Oh,
I got it.
about a quarter-ish.
Okay, I got it.
This is the first one that we did.
Okay, this is.
Why is the number changed?
Mr. Hicks has
4 pages.
3 properties that he wants to appeal, but he's only going to argue the value on one. Chelsea will have a recommendation on the other 2. So the suggestion is we start with the one that he wants to argue, and then just deal with the other 2 after that.
So we have 3 appeals here?
3 appeals, yep. But
Okay,
he'll-
so what one are we dealing with here?
what's the parcel number?
Parcel number is 9386.
This is a house?
Yes.
Bless you.
Thank you.
Okay. Three.
Everybody find it?
Getting close.
9386, I've got 2 pages for it.
Ron, do you need to help Deb find her papers?
You go ahead, James.
Wouldn't that be
parcel ID?
ironic?
Which one do you want
9386.
Yep.
to? 9386, okay.
Yep. Do you find it, Deb?
No,
It's in the afternoon packet.
I don't know where I put it. It's
Put it in
not in
your-
here and it's not there. So. Go ahead. She always has the comparables and stuff up there anyway, so. And I got this paper.
Okay.
Mr. Hicks. They're on the right property now.
She's sharing.
Morning, Mr. Hicks. Yes.
Roy Hicks.
Well, I see that you're suggesting that the value be, is that a combined, the 130,000, does that include the land value?
Say it again.
You're suggesting the value should be 130,000, does that include the land value, or is that not?
Well, here's the thing I was looking at. I give 65,000 for it just a few years ago, you know? And it seems to me like it's pretty extreme to jump it up to 162,000. And when I rent these pieces, property out, the people get in there and they just beat the shit out of stuff. They kick in the doors and punch holes in them, the walls and everything else. It looks like a war zone. Then they painted some obnoxious color.
So you purchased this how long ago?
I don't know what year I purchased it. Has it been 4 years now? I'm not exactly sure when I bought it. Do you know?
Yeah, 2014,
Oh, has it been that long?
2014. Purchased for how much?
75,000,
What'd you say?
75,000.
65,000.
Our transfer paperwork says 75. Could have been 65.
It was 65,000.
Was that listed with the realtor, or did he buy it from a private party?
It was the lady that that owned that property was trying to sell it for 101,000, 110,000, and she couldn't sell it. So it ended up going in foreclosure, and I called the lady up, and they let me have it for 65,000. Some of the concerns that we had was that lady that owned that house, she paid a contractor to replace windows and stuff like this, and anyway, the guy walked with the money and it sat there exposed for 2 or 3 years. I forget what it was, but when they had that flood, all the siding was laying on the ground and all the water was running across it and a few more things. So when I got it, who knows what I was going to deal with, So
What does a certificate of value indicate?
I saw 75,000 on the transfer paperwork.
But either the buyer or the seller, they fill out that certificate to verify.
Yeah, or their real estate agent or
So was
whoever.
that considered a good sale when you guys got it?
Yes,
So is this in a floodplain?
yes, it's in the 500-year floodplain.
as a matter of fact, the water was running across the property this year, well, not this year, but was that 2019 or when was that flood?
2018, I thought.
It
Could have been
was 18.
2019. It is right next to the Box Elder Creek.
But anyway, whenever it was, there's water running across the property and.
So you redid the house? Have you redone the house, sir?
Have you done any work to the house?
No, it's pretty much like I got it,
So you
I mean,
rented it
except
as
the
is?
people that rented it from me, they just abused the heck out of it. And now you got pictures showing how abused it is. And
So what's the recommendation stand?
My recommendation is no change. I'd like to see the 162,900.
I'm just curious how we got to that 162,900 from a sale price of 75 or 65.
So last year, the property was assessed at 133,000. And with current market appreciation and the uptick that we're seeing, these houses that are under 200,000, even in poor condition, are selling quickly. It is one of the biggest houses in the area. It is on the largest lot. So taking into consideration that was more of the approach that I took when it came to looking at value. The home is in need of repair. And we do show that within effective age or how old we think the home it should be. And we don't have it listed as nearly as good as some of the comparables in the area.
So Chelsea, things are selling more for this year. And we don't really, if I'm correct, base it on a good year. We base it on a 3-year average. So, because it would sell more this year, right? You're basing it on this?
We're looking at that 3 years worth of sales.
Okay.
So, Box Elder's been tough because where this is located is basically directly south of Love's, south of that Highway 1416 area.
Okay.
So it's right to the east of that flight plane, that flight path. So there's, the only thing that's really down there is mobile home trailers, and those are starting to get cleaned out. So right here where we're looking at is kind of top of Radar Hill Road in regards to our comps. So they're similar in regards to size, but on top of everything, he's got a stick-built home, he's got regular siding, he's got things that I thought were worth more than what some of the other comparables had.
But don't you, Miss Chelsea, don't you take condition of the home and basically, look, if you're doing comparables, that house is run down and, not that he shouldn't fix it up and do whatever, but, that house is not comparable in any kind of condition to the other ones that you're comparing to. Am I saying something that based on?
Not everyone has the same has the same condition, that's true. There's only a couple there that I would really use. Comp 5 was more something that I would like to use in relation to his. But, you know, he also has, again, larger land area, nice shop on the side. So I did take
Shop?
into, yeah, he does have a larger shop.
Where's the shop?
It's on the other, there's another photo of it, but it's to the
Can we see the
northwest of
shop?
the house.
I'll just mention also, I think, Deb, I don't know if this helped. It was appealed last year too, correct? And lowered to 155. Totaled 155 last year.
I think 155 was on the PT
Oh,
form
it was
this
the
year.
recommendation and then it was, so your recommendation was 155 last year and then it was ended up appealing to 133?
I think that's what Leroy filled out. That's what, I wasn't sure.
Okay.
I think he would like to see the 133.
That's the shop? How big is that?
Shop on that. That is 48 by 36 feet.
How big's the house, the main floor area?
Main
I
floor
don't see that
area
on there.
is, yep, 1,649 square feet.
1649,
1649.
and that includes the half-story up above?
Up above as well, yes.
Basically a shop with two-car garage.
How big's the lot?
The lot is an acre.
Yeah.
Actually, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
So if I could ask you, you put the house at a certain amount and then the shop adds what to it, Miss Chelsea, for
So
cost?
We have shop value at 35,000.
Okay, so the house is worth
We-
130.
Well, the land we have at 20.
Okay, so tell me that. So land at 20.
Yep.
Shop at 35 and house would be,
86.6.
and that's not bad.
My only question would be, I would have probably used the subject as a comparable sale, because we just said it was a good sale.
It just was out of that range of within the last 3 years that we like to use.
Okay.
That's why I left it out.
Mr. Chairman, let me just make sure I got the numbers right. Did I hear estimate 35,000 for the shop, 20 for the land, and 86 for the house?
Yes.
So then my math comes up, unless I really calculated that wrong.
86.6 for the house, I think.
Oh, 86.6. But I calculate 141 total. But maybe I really mathed wrong.
And those are the numbers that we have for cost. So if we were to replace it today, we would expect it in the same condition that it's in. That's what we would expect to spend. So those are those numbers.
And you're saying the land, 20,000?
20,000
1 acre?
or 1 acre.
Where's that sale number 1?
Comps, Miss Deb? Miss Chris?
They're just trying to get the comps up really quick.
So that house is not being occupied right now.
So
It's occupied right now.
So you're actually, somebody's living in it and has been, so it's livable.
It is livable.
Okay, so that makes a difference too.
Well, I'll just make a motion, and I'll figure out what this is, $74 a square foot. And I broke that down, and I feel I can pretty well support it, but I'll do the math here now. So we got 1649. So I'm saying 65,960 for the house, based on the condition. And then I'll go with and I'll add your 35,000 for the shop, which I think's more unfair, and 20,000 for the land, which I think is more unfair. And I come up with 121,000 rounded.
I'm gonna disagree just because we just had a house for 60,000 we could have lived in with a garage and some other stuff that we could have sold for 160. So, and that house wasn't even close to the size of this one. Not in Box Elder, but it needed a lot of repair, which I'll just tell you, we just repaired it and sold it for lot 203, but I'm just saying.
I'd make, Mr. Chair, I'd make a
Commissioner LaCroy.
motion of 155,000, that's from the previous year. I think the property's livable, nice shop, and it's making income.
Got a motion of 155,000 from Commissioner LaCroy. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Hadcock. Further discussion? All those in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hicks.
Thank you, Chelsea.
Mr. Hicks has got two other properties that Chelsea has a recommendation on that he was happy with.
That he's happy with?
Yes.
Yes.
He was willing to accept it anyways.
Okay, so the other two that we have in our stack, we can say have been handled, right?
You'll have to make a motion to approve then.
Okay, okay. So which one are we doing first?
Let's do tax ID 64424.
Okay,
Current
found
recommend,
that?
yep. I'm going to recommend land at 10,000 and mobile home unit change to $3,200 for a total of 13,200.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion for 13,200 and a second. Commissioner Hadcock and Commissioner LaCroy. Any further discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. So then we have 9367.
Correct.
Everybody have that?
You betcha.
Okay, Chelsea.
Okay, recommendation for land will be 20,000 and home, I have it 218,500 for a total of 238,500.
So moved.
Second.
138,500. We got a motion by Commissioner LaCroy, second by Commissioner Lassiter for 238,500. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Chelsea.
The only other property owner that wanted to show up today is Mr. Lassiter. And he's got two properties, residential property he lives in and a property in town. Yeah, the property in town is three parcels, or two parcels, but there's two properties. So which one would you like to do first?
Travis, which one first?
We can do the nonprofit one if you want, the two parcels.
Okay.
Okay, that was kind of
What did I do with that one?
Okay,
What's the name of
so-
that one?
the back Black Hills Pregnancy Center.
Yeah, that's,
That's 25834.
833 and 834, yes.
And of course, I'll be abstaining from the vote.
Everybody found it?
I'm looking. This is the morning?
yeah.
Good morning.
Third one down.
Okay.
Which?
Got from Department of Revenue Legal Counsel. We got the last one, so I apologize. You know, I haven't got back to you on it.
Concerning this one?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
okay. And
Yeah. Well, I didn't mean to surprise you.
So Travis, I think you were here last year for these parcels also.
yes, sir. Arguing a different aspect to have them tax exempt, but this year I'm looking to just have the value lowered. But Shannon was just telling me something that he just recently got, so I was seeing if I wanted to, so I have at least the information I have.
Right there. Would you like me to start first? We can talk about the deed restriction and what we found out.
Yeah, that's like, and
Okay.
I'm gonna pass these out, or did you already have those ready for him?
I don't have that, I was just gonna say what it is.
Okay.
So, yeah, let's pass them out.
So these are adjoining lots, is that what we're looking at here on these?
They're both adjoining lots.
Can you go to Rapid Map and just show on Rapid Map where you're at? These are, I think they're zoned residential, aren't they?
Office commercials.
They're commercial.
They were originally zoned residential. There was a plan before I came on board with the organization to do a building on there, but the organization has financial issues, and when I came on board in 2018, I started working to try to clean up some of the problems, to clean up the property, and work forward with it, so.
Yeah. So they're on the corner of Anamosa and Haynes. And Rapid Map shows that they got a house on them, but the house is tore down because the Crisis Pregnancy Center removed the buildings, and they, as he said, had plans to build on it and have abandoned that. And they've been up for sale for a couple of years now.
Yes, sir.
They've been listed, trying to sell it through a realtor. And we didn't know. He just told us recently that there's some deed restrictions on the property. And I'll let you explain that.
Roger that. So there are, as I handed you the handout that I gave you that talks about the deed restrictions, let me grab mine. The biggest thing that with this land is that these deed restrictions go with the land even after if we sold it or gave it away or whatever the situation. These restrictions stay with that piece of property. And the biggest one on it is that the grantee has to occupy it and use the property for charitable purposes. The grantee may sell or transfer the property to a Catholic, Christian, or other nonprofit organization to be used for charitable purposes. So there's a very specific use that these two pieces of property have designated to it from the donor, from the family. And then upon breach of that, as you can read in item number 3, they can basically take it back. So, and then item number 4 means it carries on, even if it gets sold or transferred later on. So only a very select group of individuals, agencies can utilize this piece of property. So, you know, one of the things that we talked about last year is because we put it on the market for 125, DOE recommended the value of that property be 125 based on the comps at the time and things of that nature. It didn't dawn on me to argue in the aspect of, that's why I'm here today, is saying, well, it's really a niche market for this land, and it didn't sell at 125. We dropped it down to 75, and we're actually, I'm not going to say we're in negotiations, but we've even let our realtor know that we're looking at even just getting out of it what we've got into it to another organization. We reached out to a couple of organizations that are nearby to even potentially donate it to them. They're not interested in it because they're not ready. They don't have a building fund or anything to do anything on the property, and therefore they don't want to take possession of it to pay taxes on it. So what we're asking, and I'm here representing the board to ask to see if the Board of Commissioners would at least consider lowering the value of the property, since really we can't sell it at the higher value. We were even willing to go back to the original value whenever they were assessed in 2018, which is, I don't remember the numbers, but it was
Travis,
between.
what do you have it listed as for selling right now?
So right now, it's on the market for 75 for the two.
Yeah,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner LaCroy?
I don't mean you're on a roll there, but
No, you're fine.
I do remember this very well from last year because we had this discussion and you feel it, and I drive by it every day. So, I mean, we'd had this discussion, and I remember you at our meeting last year talking about the restrictions on this.
Yes, sir. I did talk
So-
about them last year.
Yeah.
I don't know how that got lost when we were up here, but if it did, yes,
Yeah,
you're right.
It may have, you know, I was pretty shocked on the restrictions too, but when it comes down to selling it, it makes a big deal,
Right.
you know, so, yeah.
The argument last year-
What's that?
I'm sorry. The argument last year was over whether the property should be exempt or not.
Yeah, but
Correct.
during the discussions, I remember it came up, but it wasn't, I remember it in the discussions.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Roskinek?
Shannon, so if I got this right, it's 0.23 acres?
No, I don't know.
There's
No,
two. There's two.
0.23 plus 0.17.
Yes.
There's 2 lots.
Okay. Give me those numbers again. 2.3?
No, 0.23 plus 0.17.
Yeah. Not quite a half.
And let me clarify it
Yeah.
just a little bit, that discussion last year. I don't think he said it was in the deed, but when the land was donated, I know he made the point of saying what the purpose of the property was supposed to be. Just to clarify, so
Yeah, and I don't remember what all
Yeah.
transpired 100%.
But Travis, that does make a difference if it's in the deed, right? Because
Correct, the
then
deed
somebody could
restricts
buy
us.
it and then, so it's on the deed.
That's correct, and it really restricts it. And we potentially, our realtor said we could have sold it if we didn't have those restrictions on it. We could have sold it for 125. There were people who've been asking for it. I even went to the city just recently because we're thinking about doing something with it this year. That might be a public safety informational thing. So I'm working with the city to figure out what's legal for us to do there. But they said they've had people come in and ask about it, but once they see that it's got those deed restrictions, they're like, well, I don't fit in that category, so it's not even valuable for me. So, I would argue that on a fair and open market, this land probably would carry or get $125,000 plus. But since it's restricted, I don't think we can evaluate it on a fair and open market. And that's why I'm here, is to say, and if we have to pay taxes for it, we get it. We're not utilizing it currently for the nonprofit, so I get it. We have to pay taxes, but I think it should be fairly valued on what we can utilize it for, or what, can potentially be utilized for, even if we did sell it or donate it, because I think it's at 125, I think it's overvalued.
Well, here's my motion. And I'll break it down. It'd be 55,250. And what I'm doing, and that's just based on my experience on appraising a lot of property on Haynes Avenue, looking at the deed restriction. Bottom line, or as Deb would say, the bottom line is that it gets to a certain point where the neighbors said, I'll just buy it because it'll add to my property. And then they can use it because they can use it for assemblage, and that would probably be the highest and best use, is for the neighbor to eventually buy it. So the 55,250 would be based on $5 a square foot for the 17,000. And I'm looking at the loss of utility, and that would be the access and the deed restriction. And I just use, just based on my experience, I took that times 65%. So I'm saying that there's some functional or external obsolescence of 0.35%, and that would give me 55,250. Trying to take into consideration all the issues with the lot.
For a total, or per lot, or for a total?
Per total.
Oh, we're doing them together? We're doing them together or separate?
If we have two parcels, 0.16 and 0.23, that's 17,000 square feet times 5 would be 85,000 times 0.65, factoring for those deficiencies, should be 55,250.
Okay, Shannon.
So we just divide that out. Can you divide that out, Ron, by those two parcels, by acreage? Be like 31 something, or?
Yeah, I'll just,
he's usually faster than this guy.
well, you're asking me to do more than one equation here.
Shannon, can you speak on that number?
I'm happy to offer some comments when ready.
So the larger would be like 22,650 if I did that right.
32,000, I think, wasn't it? Or maybe you got it turned around.
The one would be 32,600, and the smaller would be 22,650.
That's what I'm coming up with.
What was the first number, 32-1?
32,600 for the 0.23, if I'm hearing what Ron's saying correctly.
Yeah,
32,600.
Okay, so 32.6, right?
Travis, after they're done, can you tell me the deed restrictions again? After
yeah, that
we're
comes
done
out to
figuring.
it.
So that would be, I guess, my motion.
Okay, I've got a motion. Is there a second? I'll second that. Further discussion?
Can I add some comments?
Sure.
I'd like to reference the law. I agree to some extent with what Ron is talking about, except we're required by statute to assess the property at market value and not sale price. The deed restrictions definitely will impact the sale price of this property. It limits the market. Now, somebody with a similar organization could certainly buy it, and there are a lot of different organizations like his, but not all of them are looking for property. But I got to refer to the statute, and this is what I say we were waiting. So I didn't mean to surprise Commissioner Lassiter with this. We were waiting for a legal opinion. The statute that defines real property for ad valorem tax purposes states in part here, real property for the purposes of ad valorem taxation includes, 1, land and all rights and privileges thereto belonging. And then 2, it continues with improvements to land and all rights and privileges thereto belonging. What we've got here is a property where a previous owner has severed part of the rights of this property. They have reserved the right to sell it to anybody except an organization described in the deed restriction. This is similar to what Nature Conservancy does with a conservation easement. They will reserve the development rights on a property, and the deed holder can, in the case of a ranch, continue to use the property for grazing, but can never develop the property. So we've actually split the rights of the property. Another situation is a lease. Think of a commercial lease that's burdened by a below market lease for a long period of time. There's a loss in revenue over that time, but the law requires us to value the property and all of the rights. We can't, it would be absurd, to send an assessment notice to the Crisis Pregnancy Center and the previous owner to account for all of the rights of the property. We're going to send the assessment notice and tax bill to the current deed holder. The fact that the current deed holder doesn't own all of the rights to the property is not something we can legally consider. I contacted the Department of Revenue and got an opinion from legal counsel with the Department of Revenue and got that response. The county cannot consider value of a property based on partial rights that a title holder will have. There's even a Supreme Court case that's on point on this. There was a case, Yadco versus Yankton County. And in that situation, it was the commercial lease. The property it was owned by an economic development corporation, and they had leased it for 20 years to a company that they wanted to promote. That's what economic development corporations do. The lease was below market because they wanted to do that. And then they had a deal to build a building on the property. And then they came to the county assessor and requested a lower value because of the lease and the terms of all that. And the Supreme Court case says we have to value the entire rights to the property because that's what the law requires. This definitely affects what this organization can sell the property for, but it doesn't impact its market value for taxation purposes. Now, Commissioner Lassiter says that the realtor said he could sell the property for $125,000 plus if this situation didn't exist. Well, we have it assessed for about $126,000, so we're right there. I don't think there's much argument about what the property would be worth if we didn't have this deed restriction.
In an open fair market, correct?
Yes, and that's what we're required to consider by law.
Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind, South Dakota Codified Law 10.6.1.3 says fair market value and full and true value defined. As used in this chapter, and it gives the list of numbers there, the term fair market value and the term full and true value mean the price in money and property will bring in a competitive and open market under all conditions requisite to a fair sale. between a willing buyer and a willing seller, each acting prudently and with knowledge of all relevant facts and assuming the price is not affected by any undue stimulus. I would argue that it's not a fair and free market for us because we don't get to partake with anybody who would come and give us an offer. And secondly, if anyone is going to look at that property, they're probably not going to make an appropriate offer if they fit in this category that it's restricted to, because they're like us. They don't have a lot of revenue. Now, there are some nonprofits that do have a lot of revenue and that could potentially buy this straight out like that. However, the nonprofits and the other organizations that we've gone out to, none of them are actually interested in this particular piece of property. So I don't feel that it is a fair and open value market for us based on the definition of codified law.
So,
So,
Travis,
Travis,
just,
tell us about the previous owner.
The previous owner was a gentleman who actually used to rent these properties. And again, this is I wasn't with the organization in knowing all the background, but this is what I've researched and found out. So he used to own these two apartment complexes and rented them out as low income housing. Sometimes didn't even rent them out and just let people live there. So that was the individual, and he had a heart for ministries, and he was a Catholic gentleman. And so whenever he passed away, before he passed away, actually, he donated these two properties, hoping that our pregnancy center would utilize them. There were some conveyances according to the deed of what we were supposed to do. And the plan was, with the previous leadership of the organization, was to convert one of those into the pregnancy center, lease the other one out for income. When the organization started working on those to remodel them, actually they became condemned, and we realized how bad they were. So the organization then decided to tear down the buildings to see if we couldn't do something different and maybe build a brand new structure on there. From the time that it was donated, the organization then started having some financial issues, which led us to the point where things got started but never got completed.
So if it was to revert, who would it revert to?
Well, if we didn't own it anymore, like if we just gave it up,
Yeah.
it actually would go back to the family, and we've actually reached out to the family, not the trust, the estate, and we asked them if they would release the restrictions, and we gave them, our risk assessment for that community, since it's a higher crime community. We said the risk assessment for us putting a medical treatment facility there, if that's that's about the closest you can reckon, is that the risk assessment for that is high with the crime rate that's in the area. And we said, look, we could actually sell this property for a higher value and benefit the organization to build somewhere else where we can get just a better location than where we're at currently. The estate said that even though my uncle has passed away, his wishes were clear about what he wanted with that property, and we're unwilling to remove any of the restrictions. So we said, well, what happens if we decided to offer it back to you guys? And they said, well, you could do that, but you're paying the lawyer fees and everything to get it reverted back to us. So now we're like, okay, so now we're even in a bigger pickle, so that either we give it back to them and then we pay more money out to have their lawyer do whatever the lawyers do to revert the land back to them, but they're going to keep the restrictions on it to whatever organization they give it back to or try to donate it to.
So the comment where it says the current owner and previous owner should get together and get this figured out,
Is
you've
impossible.
already done that,
Well, yeah, the estate, yes, correct.
right? And the estate has no interest in doing anything different than what they've.
That is
provided
correct.
here. Okay,
Mr. Chair,
yes.
Shannon, the highlighted area, is that both parcels?
I think that's only one.
That's only
isn't it?
one. The one below it, where you can see the house,
So
Yeah.
I got confused because I didn't know we had two, and
Two tax parcels.
I guess what I'm saying is I would recommend $5 a square foot for the full bundle of rights. But that corner lot has some really major access issues. I know that they're selling better lots down on Haynes for $10 a square foot,
I don't know what we have it assessed at per square foot.
$742.
Our commercial appraisers have considered the sales out there and the access issues. And as Commissioner Lassiter said, it would sell for that and then some,
on a
for
fair and
all of the
open,
rights.
on a fair and open market, correct.
We are looking at a value on the open market, in a fair market, not at a value to this organization. It's the value of all of the rights to the property on an open market. We can't assess property based on an individual's value of the property. That'd that'd open up a Pandora's box of problems.
But
I
the
could,
Black Hills Crisis Pregnancy Center does not have access to all the rights.
that's right. But we are required by law
I hear you say that.
to assess it at full rights.
So wouldn't it be cheaper to just have somebody, a lawyer, not everybody, all of them are expensive, and revert it back instead of pay all this and deal with paying the taxes on it? Travis?
We have started looking down that pathway too, but like I said, we're working with the city right now. We came up with a plan that we think might be viable for us to utilize the property starting this summer so that we can potentially use for the pregnancy center so that we can apply for tax exemption for next year. We're working through that process right now. So I'm building up the PD that the city wants me to do, and hopefully we'll have a plan here in the next couple of weeks that I can present to them.
So how much do you pay for these two properties? How much do you pay on tax each year?
I wish I would have brought that. I don't know what the actual tax value is. It's,
I don't know what the taxes are.
126,000, guys, how much you pay?
Oh, 126, it's
800?
probably.
800 a year?
2,000 or 3,000.
I was gonna say, it sounds like 2,800 is roughly what I'm thinking, but I could be totally wrong.
2,000 or 3,000, yes. A guess.
That's about what it would cost for a lawyer, really.
So I have a motion and a second to break those down to, for the larger size lot of 32,600 and the smaller sized one of 22,650.
Actually,
I think you
that's when
changed
I made that motion based on something I
You changed
didn't
it?
understand. There's two parcels. My motion would simply be $5 a square foot for each parcel.
So what's that come
So,
out to?
so you offer that as a substitute motion?
That would be my substitute motion. That
And it
would be
what? $5?
$5 a square foot would be,
You actually just drop the first motion, Ron, and then make a original motion.
so motion to drop the first motion.
Yeah, and then
Is
second.
that
You
okay?
you can withdraw. That was the second. I'd
Yeah, I'll
withdraw
just
my
withdraw
second.
that
Okay, so,
motion.
so we're back to a motion. $5 per square foot.
So the larger parcel's roughly 10,000 square feet, roughly at $5 would be 50,000.
That's the smaller one.
And then the other one is 7,000 at $5. Would be 35,000, so the 35,000 for the small one and 50,000 for the larger one, and that would be, the assessed value right now is $742 a square foot. But I guess just what I'm looking at, it's just the utility of the property. Some properties just have curb appeal. This one, I think because of the high density of traffic on a signal intersection, it's just going to be, I think developers shy away from that because it's going to be too hard for their, for customer base to get on and off these two major corridors.
And
Slow.
we do know that from the city, they said whenever we apply for a building permit, if we decide to build on there, they're going to remove access. So on the top portion of the map there, there's access on Anamosa. They're actually going to require us to remove access off Anamosa. And our Haynes Avenue access, they're going to require us to move it south to the property line and only give us one access off the property.
So
That's already something that they've already told us before we even move
That's what I
forward.
see.
I'll second his motion.
Okay, I've got a motion and a second to value the combined properties at 85,000, with the breakdown being 50,000 on the larger parcel, 35,000 on the smaller parcel. Is it? We've got a motion and a second. Is there further discussion on that? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you very much. Okay, that's fine.
Right on that, Ron, because across the street. they do
Commissioner
the same.
Lasker has another property. It's his personal residence, and Joe will speak to that.
Can we, we're nearing noon time. Can we hold that till 1 o'clock?
I'm here anyway.
What's the board want to do?
That sounds good, Gary.
Okay, so I would say that we be in recess
Thank you,
until 1 PM. Travis, you're still up. 3 minutes start right now.
3 minutes start right now. Oh. All right, commissioners, I'm here before you to have your consideration on our property. After discussion with the Department of Equalization, I respectfully disagree with their determination for a cost to cure. So I'll just kind of give a quick overview of the history of the property. We bought the property in 2010 for the purpose of our family to
Are you okay?
raise our livestock and grow food ourselves. We turned it into a small farm operation. A few years later, when we registered with the Department of Revenue, got our tax license, and of course now we're an ag operation and sell to the local community, and we still raise animals for our own use and purpose. The Air Force in 2018 started testing our well due to the Air Force PFAS, PFOA water contamination along the Box Elder Creek plume, if you will. And then in October, I believe it was October of this year, October of 2020, they came and told us that our well was contaminated because it had higher than normal, the EPA standards for health of that PFAS, PFOA in our well. When they recommended us to not drink our water, they actually started trucking in water to us, and they put a water system in our house. They give us 5-gallon jugs of water to put in that water distribution system, and they provide all of our drinking water for the home based on the guidance. They also told us not to drink any of the milk that our cattle and our goats produce, and that's what a couple of our livestock are utilized for, is milk production. So with that, I've been in conversation with the base. I've also been in conversation with the EPA, and the base's determination. There's two factors that is their determination about making us whole, if you will, and it doesn't include putting a cistern in, which is what the DOE says that's what they believe is right to cause for cure, if you will. The Air Force is looking at one of two options for our property. It's either a new deep well or connecting us to municipal water. So if we're going to go for the cost to cure, then that value is what should be considered for the reduction, not the 14,000 for a cistern, or at least in our opinion for that. Now, if we were to put a cistern, I would still even say, even if the board said, well, we're going to say the cistern's appropriate, we've calculated that we would need a 20,000 gallon cistern to take care of our cattle whenever we have them there, and to do all of our gardening and everything we do. We have about an acre of a garden. So you're looking at a significantly more cost for us to put one in if that was the route that the Board of Commissioners went. But again, the county didn't damage our property. I didn't damage my property. The Air Force did, and their conclusion for cost to cure is either a new well or connecting to municipal water. So if you look at the cost of that, roughly where I'm at, a new well is anywhere between 90 and 100,000. Don't have any quotes yet because I haven't been given the authorization to go do that, because we're still negotiating on point of source contamination treatment on my property right now, so they don't have to deliver water. But New Underwood and I have had brief conversations, and if they can run the line on the north side of the railroad and then come underneath the railroad, it might cost about $110,000 to $120,000 for municipal water to be brought to my property. If the railroad doesn't give them permission to go underneath the railroad, the point that's about across my neighbor's property would probably bring it to 160 to 180 to trench across and bring it from the point of contact that is on the south side of the railroad, from what New Underwood has briefly discussed with me. We haven't done a big study on it because the Air Force is the one who has to come out and say where everything goes. So no one's really pushed forward with anything at this moment in time. And the response I originally had from the Air Force was it's going to be anywhere between 18 to 24 months before they get their study done and all this things done. I've been in contact with the EPA. The EPA agrees that we should not be giving our animals the contaminated water because it could contaminate their products.
Travis?
I'm sorry.
Sorry, Travis, but bottom line is, did any other properties, did their values go down, their assessments go down, or because of water, or did you see any changes in property values? Did anybody's property not sell? I mean, yours is different, like you said, because you cannot do the water, or you have these options, but
Right.
how about the other areas? affected and the houses affected and livestock in different areas? Did they get affected by?
So I'm unfamiliar with many of the properties that may have been affected. The only thing that I've recently received from the Air Force was that there's 94 individual properties that have been impacted by this. Most of them, 66 of them, are connected to one well source. And the other 30, most of them are near a municipal water source that they're able to connect them to. This is just in general information they're giving me. They're not giving me a lot of information. The only thing that I do know is the EPA has only isolated my particular piece of property. In fact, I got a letter from the EPA yesterday stating to the Air Force, telling them 18 months to 24 months is not appropriate. You have 2 weeks to respond to our request to determine, because they want them, because we produce a product for sale, they want the Air Force to come out and do an evaluation and verify. And so I'm really looking just for a temporary reduction in value on the cost to cure, which could be the cost of the new well or the connecting to municipal water, kind of like the offset that Joe recommended from the DOE, because right now we can't sell our property. We're a VA home loan, and if we wanted to put our house on the market, I've got the VA standard guidance book, if you would like it, that you can see what is required. But if you have contaminated water, the water has to be non-contaminated for us to sell it. It has to do all these other things. Oh, here it is. So, I mean, I can show you that our land at this moment in time, we couldn't sell it if we wanted to. We couldn't let someone absorb the VA home loan. So like if a military member wanted to buy our land, they can typically take over the VA home loan. None of that can happen because of all the violations on our property, because its contamination is outlined in this VA pamphlet. So that's why we're arguing that our property value temporarily, I believe, until it's cured, should be brought down appropriately until it gets done. We personally are considering putting in a deep well if the Air Force doesn't do something soon. We moved all of our cattle off the property. It's actually out in the hills now, so that they're hopefully drinking, well, they are drinking clean water, but hopefully if they have PFAS contaminant in their body, it can be shunted out of them by drinking clean water. And that is one of the recommendations by the EPA.
So, Joe, so we just talked about a little bit, when you're remodeling or like a condemned house or something like that, and we have to reduce the property values until that property has been fixed up, you see where I'm going, like with Travis's, he can't sell it, he has issues with water, that kind of thing, kind of like a condemned house until it's good to go and it's sellable or whatever.
Right.
Is there some type of reduction or something that you can give someone temporary reduction, kind of like you do a
There
remodel?
is, yes. And to that end, I have recommended that we do a cost to cure for the cost of putting a cistern in. And perhaps this isn't the size that Mr. Lassiter needs, but it is consistent in the number that we're using for all other of the properties that we are aware of that have been condemned, that have been brought to our before us. And because of that, we have made recommendations and lowered their value approximately $14,000 for the cost to cure for a cistern.
Or, if you, do you mind if I ask a question? Aren't any of them doing an ag business?
Yes.
They are? Are they doing large livestock as well?
Yes.
And they said it was acceptable?
Yeah, and yeah, they were okay with that. I just wanted to say that I'm just recommending that we'll go down to 128,500 on this property. Initially, the assessment was 142,100. So that's a recommendation that I am making to the board. I gave you a document, if I can just go through that. The first one is, after this page is a letter. It says Joe Doran on the top, or Doran Joe. This is an email that we received in our office from the Air Force, just talking about this issue. And on the first paragraph, almost to the end, it says respond. They are providing alternative drinking water supply, which they're doing for Mr. Lassiter and his family. The second paragraph talks about an attached map that we'll look at here in just one moment. And then the final paragraph talks about the different ways that the Air Force is of remedying this problem. They're giving bottled water, home treatment systems, filtration systems, designing treatment systems, installing them. They're developing plans to sample and maintain these systems. They're providing people with water hookups if they're available. And then the letter says, the last sentence of that paragraph, treatment systems installed have been effective at treating the drinking water to below the APA lifetime health advisory. So, and a couple of pages down, you're going to see the level of contamination on the Lassiter property. It is 71.7, and being anything over 70 is considered to be contaminated. So we're talking about 1.7 nanograms per liter is what we're talking about. So the next page I wanted to point you to is the map. And this is the map. And the blue line is a sample area that the Air Force did of wells and surface waters to find out how they're contaminated. Mr. Lassiter's property is close out to where it says Box Elder Creek. And it gives some information as to the drinking water and all that stuff. I just wanted to primarily show you that map. And then the next page says Department of Air Force, Rita Krebs, and it talks about Mr. Lassiter's property being 71.7%. The next page is Pam Rugg, however you say her name, and her phosphorus is 1,674 nanograms per liter, which is significantly higher. Her property is closer to the base, but it's definitely higher, as well as the next two are also significantly higher. And we're making these adjustments for cost to cure.
So same adjustments as you're making to Commissioner Lassner's?
Yes.
Okay.
And then the last 3 pages are just some sales that are in and around this area. These sales are within the last year. And the first one is a sale for $242,500. When you consider the acres that it sells for, $3,500 per acre after you took the houses out, which is consistent with what property sells for in that area. The next sale right below it is one that was for $45,000. I happen to know the person that bought that, so I called him and asked him. I said, "Why did you pay such a low price?" And she said, "Because of all the stuff I had to take off of that property. It took me all last summer." And I said, "What about the water?" She goes, "No, that wasn't an issue." And when I subtract out her buildings, it comes up to $10,000 per acre. She, of course, only has two acres, just over 2, and Mr. Lassiter's property is 6. The next sale is a $4.931 million sale in Box Elder, which that sale price is $3,600 per acre. Again, it's not being affected by the contamination. The last one is out a little bit further. And it sold for $225, subtract out the houses, and it was selling for $5,300 an acre. Yes, this contamination is bad, and yes, we don't want it, we don't want to drink it, whatever, but it is not affecting the sale price of the properties at this point. So that's what I'm finding. I think that as the EPA, if they come in and they condemn the property, certainly we need to look at that and do an adjustment. But if we're going to make an adjustment for the cost to cure for the well, his assessment would be negative because the property was assessed at 140, and the prices I got on the new well was in the $100,000 to $150,000 range. So, barring additional information from the EPA or Ellsworth, and considering these sales, which indicate the land is still selling well, even properties sell well when the information is disclosed, that first sale I mentioned, the 242,500, that was disclosed in that sale, and we had confirmation of that from the realtor. So in being consistent with all other properties that have this contamination, I'm recommending the cost to cure, which will bring the final value in at 128,500.
Can I address a couple of things on there?
Yeah, I got a question first, Travis. Then.
Okay, go ahead.
So Joe, when we look at the contamination,
Mhm.
anything above 70, they consider contaminated.
Correct.
So really, whether Lassiter's is 71 or 270, it doesn't make any difference. It's
Correct.
contaminated. Right.
Exactly, yes.
Okay, go ahead, Travis.
So just to give you a history of the testing on my well, January 16 of 2020, we were at 24. And then October of 2020, we were at 71. The numbers are going up. They're expecting the numbers to continue to go up. There's no reason why they're not going down. I just wanted to address that just so that everyone knows that within 9 months, it went up at about 50, well, fast math, 40, 50 points. But again, Joe's correct. There are some mitigation factors that are going on, and most of the properties are accepting the fact that when the Air Force comes in, they're getting them to put in a treatment system. It's about a $10,000 treatment system that connects to the home to treat the water specifically to the home. That's the first phase of doing this correction, if you will. The secondary phase is if you have a shallow well and it's contaminated, you don't get to drink from that well, and it's either a deep well or a municipal water source.
So what they're taking care of there is the human consumption.
So they're only dealing with the human consumption. Now, we have been in the argument and discussion with the Air Force, and they've tried to say, we only want to put this treatment system to your house because the guidelines is that we connect it to your drinking water. However, what they didn't do, and I've been researching a lot of this, I found that for August, which was a couple months before we were notified that we were contaminated, that there is a DOD letter that states that if you have an ag business there, you can use the operational funds, because the Air Force was saying we can't use those funds to connect it to your well. We can only use the funds to connect the treatment system to your house. That would be consistent with using a smaller cistern to provide water for a cost of cure if you went that route. But we're trying to maintain our water supply for our entire property, which is what has been contaminated. The Air Force gives them, the Assistant Secretary of Defense gives the Air Force, according to this letter, which it's got the Secretary of Defense on there, I highlighted it on there, their operation and maintenance funds can provide alternative water source treatment at the well for ag, for places that, I'm not going to read the whole thing, that produce ag for consumption. And that is the very specific letter that the EPA sent to the base just recently, which you will see it's highlighted at the very top, Environmental Protection Agency, and it's telling them they have 2 weeks to respond to the request for that. So our property is a little bit different in that we didn't say, we said, look, we believe that you should treat all of the water on our property because we have a vested interest in our business, and you're telling us that we can't utilize that product for sale or consumption, so we want the treatment system on our well. And they're not putting it on our well, they want to put it on our home. So a lot of these places, they're only dealing with a small amount of water, the amount that goes into the home, rather than what we're looking at, which is for our entire property. So that's why I believe the Air Force is saying the only two options for us to be made whole again is through a deep well or for municipal water. Does that make sense?
Mr. Chair. And that is correct, that the information that I found by Googling different things on the internet is that the EPA or the Air Force, they are going to be paying for this, and they are going to fix it. That doesn't mean that Mr. Lester or someone else doesn't have to do some paperwork or some footwork to get this done, to get their well hooked up or whatever. It's just part of the cost. But the Air Force, the EPA, someone is going to pay for this contamination. So I believe that the adjustment that we're making is fair and equal and considerate of all people who are contaminated.
So just food for thought, if we gave Travis a discount, then based on this, then wouldn't we legally have to go through everybody's, or because he has does he have different circumstances than anybody else, is what I'm saying, Joe?
I hear what you're saying, that don't we have to get everybody within that blue line?
Yes.
You know, and to the best of our ability, we are doing that. by the people that are coming in and talking to us. We are not going out and canvassing. Has your house been contaminated? We're doing the ones that are coming to us because we're doing mass
I
appraisal.
said, can you help them with their assessment based on,
Yeah,
you know, they're not getting the ability to have full land use and their house
right,
because of use of contamination.
correct.
Mr. Chair, I'm trying to digest this also. The last sale price was 218.
That's what we bought it for.
Okay, then when did you discover the water deficiency?
October 20th, 2020. That's whenever we were contaminated, what was considered officially contaminated.
October 2020.
2020, October 2020.
Okay.
So Deb, do you have the, sales for the last 3 to 5 years up there of this house? Land value or Chris, I keep asking Deb, she used to.
Well, if it sold for 218, then it was assessed at, in 2020 for 133.3. I'm just trying to figure out how it got, that's my appraiser hat, trying to figure out, it sold for 218, then it got assessed for 133. Was there,
It is classified as agricultural.
Okay.
So the land value is not based on market. It is based off of production and the agricultural value of the land, which is $6,000.
then what do
Which
you,
changed because when we bought it, it wasn't originally for ag. It just got ag exemption 3 years ago.
Classification.
Classification like 3 years ago.
and what's your request, Travis?
Well, after talking to Joe, the DOE said the cost to cure would be 14,000 for the cistern. I disagree. I think it'd be between 90 and 110 if we put in a deep well. Our action that we're looking at doing is if the Air Force says we're still going to take 18 to 24 months there, I mean, they're a DOD agency. I mean, I don't know how them and the EPA are going to communicate and if the EPA can force them to do something. We're looking at drilling the well ourselves and putting it in because we want to have our property clean, have good water. And so that would be a cost to us to make the property whole. And then we'll deal with the legal side of it or, you know, whatever it has to be for us to recoup those funds during the cleanup phase or the legal side of the phase.
Travis, I think the question is Joe's recommending 128.5. What are you saying it should be?
If you take the cost to cure of a new well, and I'm just going to go conservative and say $90,000, reduce that by $90,000.
Talking 38.5, basically.
If we're using that as the reason to drop it to 14, the cost to cure from the DOE's perspective is that's the cost to cure. It would cost you 14 to put that cistern in. Well, we're going to put in a well because that makes us whole to what the property was. We have a shallow well. The only way to make it whole, we can't put another shallow well in. We have to go deep because you can't do shallow wells in the area that this plume is at. You have to do a deep well.
What are you considering deep?
I think the well driller that I talked to said it's anywhere between 12 to 1750 out there, feet.
1,700 feet.
And that's a guess. They haven't come out and done anything. He says, you know, before you spend money, he says, I'm just giving you a rough estimate.
So to be up fair, Travis, so if Joe goes and says, okay, I'd reduce yours to, because you're gonna put a 90,000 instead of do the system on your house, are we gonna go out there, everybody that comes to complain or has complained, saying, are you putting a deep well, are you putting this system in or this system, because this is how we're gonna base it? You see what I'm saying, Travis? So you can't really say, okay, your well cost you this much, so that's why we should drop that assessment. Because when I do a condemned house, it's gonna cost me $20,000 or $50,000. They don't reduce it based on that house is a piece of crap and I can't use it right now on that.
What do they reduce it by? I mean, is there
They still left it at like 60 and it was 100 something. So meaning it was unused for a year.
so even a 50% property valuation reduction? Is that
Yeah,
fair?
but I bought it that way in this case, so I knew
Okay.
it was happening, meaning
Oh.
in this case, you actually have an alternative, like I don't have an alternative to do something else. If I want to spend, if I want to spend 10, 20, 50 or 100 on that house based on what the Air Force is going to pay you for what you're doing. So Joe's being fair
Maybe.
by basing it on, you know, what the paybacks are, because you made a different choice than what the Air Force or the people were paying or wanting to pay for it. People could do that all the time, but to reduce it like fair, like he's doing everybody else, the 14,000, Travis, unless he starts doing it for everybody else, I don't think you're setting a precedent, and I don't think it's just for everybody else that has the same issues.
Most people are following and getting connected to the water systems. Most people are doing that.
But you
That's
can,
what they're doing.
so how much is that gonna cost you to connect to the water system?
If, again, it's estimated about 100,000 if they stay north of the railroad and get permission to go underneath the railroad. If it's the point that's south of the railroad, you're talking 150 to 60,000 for trenching. I don't think that's fair. Our position with the Air Force is to make us whole like the property is now with the well, not to have municipal water, because we we utilize about 13,000 gallons in the summer easily a month. So the cost of that would be tremendous, and I don't want to be paying that, and we shouldn't have to, because it's not we didn't contaminate our well, the Air Force did. I'm just trying to figure out I agree with you, trying to figure out what's appropriate. I only based my reduction on DOE saying, we believe the cost to cure is 14,000. I disagree that that's not the cost to cure, because the cost to cure is to make the property whole, which is to get us back to where we're at. That cost is a different cost. It's not 14,000.
So basically, you think your house should be reduced down to 38.5?
Temporarily. Again, only temporarily. I'm not saying once everything is cured, bring it back up to what the market value is at that point in time. I'm saying until we get this cleaned up. The EPA's got to come out with a DENR, and they're going to determine whether our land, how much contamination is actually on our physical land, because we have that creek that runs through it too. So we're not even addressing that particular issue.
So what are you doing for water right now? Is the Air Force providing all the water for you guys?
Air Force is trucking in water, and my cattle went out to a different pasture right now. So we moved. We're having to invest and spend extra funds for this. If we put in a cistern, we go to Box Elder to get the water. So now we have to buy a bigger truck to haul the water to bring it out to our place to utilize it. I mean, there's more cost than 14,000.
I'm seeing more of the circumstance created by you in some of these things and what you want to do, not the circumstance, I should say, like the contamination. But if I was to go buy your property for 38.5, would you sell it to me right now?
Well, I wouldn't sell it for 38.5 because we're utilizing our property.
That's what I'm saying, Travis.
I wouldn't sell it for 300,000. There was an offer for 300,000, and we chose not to do it because we don't want to
But
move
I'll
from
buy
our
your,
land.
what I'm saying, Travis, I'd buy your property for 38.5 and fix that cistern and fix that problem. And that's what he's saying. If the other people went and sold their property and what it's assessed for based on the problem out there, what could you get for it? 38.5? No.
So Travis, again, the amount of water they're providing for you is only for human consumption, though, now.
That is correct.
They're not bringing water for you to feed your
That's
livestock.
correct. That's why our animals moved off the property at this moment in time.
Okay.
So if you did put in a cistern, if they bring out the bottled water, they wouldn't necessarily keep the cistern full. That would be your responsibility.
Yeah, the Air Force would probably wash their hands of it and then say, "Oh, well, you've got your own water source now, so we're not going to do it." Well, that again still impacts us as well.
So how many gallons would that cistern be?
We estimated about 13,500 gallons is what we use in a month. So we estimate to have a cushion, a 20,000 gallon cistern.
So to be fair, Joe, to Travis, any other properties with the ag, with a house, with acreage, that have to take care of ag, the most you gave them was $14,000 reduction
Yeah,
with the same circumstances as Travis.
correct. Yeah, I looked at all the adjustments that we made and did the median, and it was right at around
And as there's
14,000.
ones with more than 6 acres and they have to deal with cattle and they had to move their cattle and they have to do all these different things and they have to haul their water in. The people that actually came to complain about the same issue, the most they were ever reduced was 14,000.
Correct.
Okay.
And they didn't argue and say that, you got to take this in consideration, this in consideration, this in consideration.
Not to me.
Okay. Maybe it's just me because I'm running a business. I'm looking at all the factors that are impacting us. I don't know the details of those land. I do know what the EPA is telling me. I know what the Air Force is telling me. And I've got the documentations that I gave to y'all.
But Travis, I'm not against what you're saying. I
Right.
just don't know what I'm based on a guy that's been doing this a long time on what he bases it on. I don't know it's fair because how many cisterns or contaminations and stuff. This is the first one. What is fair and how do we base it to be equalized? Because it's an equalization process across the board. So you tell me on equalization, are we ready to reduce everybody else the same way if they decide to do what you do?
So one thing I didn't say at the beginning, because I didn't read my whole thing, my whole statement, but I'll let you know this. One of the key points of us buying the property that we bought it for was that it didn't have a cistern. We were looking for land, and the lands that had cisterns, we kicked them off of our list when we first started buying land. The other thing is that I'll put out there, I said at least until the process gets fixed or gets cured, I gave myself a window and I said, look, this is my last statement that I was going to read if I read the whole thing. I would encourage the county to consider this issue as not something that we did to our land, but that what was done to our land. We ask that you temporarily reduce our taxable value to between 0 and 50,000 at this time. I'm willing to come back each year and give an update on the cleanup process and when we are considered clean. We expect this is going to be costly for us to make it right. We also welcome any help from the county to make this right as soon as possible. The EPA, like I just said, that EPA letter that I pointed out to you dated April 13, 2021, our property is the property they're talking about. It's piqued their interest, and they're giving the Air Force 2 weeks to respond to their letter. So this is, I mean,
But I'm just saying, I'm one of five, Travis, but I'm trying to find the equalization thing that's gonna make it fair and just, but still, everybody else that it's affected. That's what I'll keep saying, that's what equalization is.
right.
I don't think we reduced anybody by 90,000 or whatever. That's, to me, that's above and beyond. So where do we find that equalization or that, because we're not about compromise here, we're about doing the right thing by
Right.
equalizing.
Maybe I can put it this way, if you don't mind, Jerry, just one thing. You'd mentioned about if I came to you and offered you 38,000, would you buy my land? Or could I buy your land? If you came with a VA loan, you couldn't buy my land for $38,000.
Saying if someone had the,
Commissioner LaCroy.
Travis, are you living on the property right now?
We are living on the property.
So you're living there, and Air Force is bringing in drinking water for you to live on, is mainly the
Just drinking water, yep.
you can't. I'm just looking at this strictly as numbers. I think your battle, you picked your battle and you're working on that with the Air Force to get that fixed. I think that's the biggest concern. I look at what you paid at 218 if the water was fixed. You could get a heck of a lot more than that right now at 218. I think eventually it probably will. It's going to take time, either through a cistern or through water getting brought in. I kind of feel the staff was fair. When I look at your purchase value at 218, 10 years, 11 years ago, and we got it at 128.5 with the circumstances of it was a cistern, I understand. I think that's a considerable amount as you're still living there. I mean, it's still being used for you at that price. You may not be able to do everything you want with it. I think I go back to the very beginning where I think your biggest battle is with the Air Force and the contamination, and so I'm at the point where I'm agreeing with staff with where it's at.
Can I ask one more thing for consideration then? Joe, what size of cistern did y'all calculate for that?
I actually do not know the size of the cistern that was calculated because that was done by someone else in our office. But I was looking at the changes that we made to those properties and the amount that we made for that cost to cure.
I have a quote for a cistern, and this is on sale, mind you, for $27,000, and it's a 20,000 gallon one to meet the needs of our property. That's not installed, that's not anything. So if you're gonna only rely on the cost to cure based on a cistern, I think we need to at least look at the fair cost of what the cistern would for our property, which would be a little bit higher, maybe.
well, Travis, what's your cistern now?
We have no cistern.
Oh, you don't?
We have a well. That's what our water source is. We have no cistern on our property. We would have to dig and put one in, and then, quite frankly, we'd have to buy a truck or a trailer to haul, and then we're hauling back and forth to Box Elder. So that's
How old is the well?
1980s.
Mr. Chair, in answer to your question, he said that the Air Force had installed a system into his
A
house.
system, not cistern.
Yeah, a system for this water.
They have not they installed a water tank. You know, you take a 5-gallon tank and put it on, they brought us the little stand to put that's how we get our water, is through a 5-gallon jug and that stand. That's how we're getting our water. Not that we're pulling it out of the well, not that we're drinking our well water that's filtered. It's 5-gallon jugs of water. That's how we're doing our water.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Oskinen.
Travis, can you use the water for showering? And
You can use it for showering. You can't use it for cooking. You can't use it for brushing your teeth. You can't use it for any other way that you might get it into your eyes or mouth or anything of that nature.
so I'll put my appraiser hat on again, but we're supposed to be looking at what we consider market value. And cost to cure, I mean, that comes in handy sometimes, but it can also be a little bit confusing. But I guess what we're saying is, if your property's not for sale, but we're saying if you did try to sell it, even with the arrangement that you have with the Forest Service and the conditions that exist, we have to ask ourselves, would somebody pay that? Would the market bear that? And I look more at the market than I do cost, and I really think that somebody would. I think we all agreed that somebody would pay that $218. I totally understand that we're looking at to totally make that go away would be 90 to 100,000, but I don't know if that's the answer that we can arrive at today, because if we do that, Deb's exactly right. We're just totally going against what the Department of Equalization stands for. We're going to be way out of whack on one property and have 93, or we're going to be in line with one property and have 93 out of whack. We got to try to be equal. I'm not saying this is a permanent fix, but I kind of go along at least making that adjustment, which should be equal to all the other adjustments. More so than, if I was going to spend 100,000, I would hope to get 4 or 5 neighbors to participate with me so that we could share that water. If you're going to go 1,200 feet deep, because you would be the only property out there probably with a 12 or 1,300. You look at the feasibility.
It's actually we're probably going to be the only one. Quite literally, we're probably going to be the only one.
Yeah.
So you see where we're going,
I'll
Travis.
make
I mean, it can't be connected to any other water people, because they're already
I'll
connected.
make a motion. Motion is to reduce the 128.5 as recommended by Equalization by a total of 13,000, taking that value down to $115,500.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Further discussion.
He already reduced it, didn't you? From the 100, you reduced it off of that already with the 14,000 off of it?
Yeah, that
From the beginning?
128,500 included the reduction that I was recommending.
Right.
Further discussion.
So then you're taking off
13,000.
no, you're talking 14 that he does for everybody else.
No, my motion was to reduce their recommendation of the 128.5 by 13,000.
What I'm saying is he already took the 14,000 off to get it to 128,
Okay.
and you're taking 13 more, so you're giving him almost 30,000 instead of the 14 recommended for everybody
I'm going
else.
from the recommendation here.
Okay, so you're giving him more.
Which is the cost for our cistern. If we,
Further discussion. All those in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
Motion carried 3-1.
thank you.
Shannon.
Nobody else is going to come today, so I would suggest we go back to the top of that original schedule, and for everybody that didn't show, our office will have a recommendation. You have to act on them whether they show or not. So we'll tell you what our recommendation is, and name, parcel number, and what our recommendation is, and hopefully we can click through these fairly quickly.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Don't go too
the
fast.
G6 hospitality property there's 2.
G6 withdrew their appeal, so you don't have to act on that. So let's
Okay.
skip that one, and we'll go down to Ridgestone LLC.
Okay.
So my name's Rod, and just let me know when you get caught
Okay.
up on the numbers.
Let's see if we can find it here.
Are you looking for Ridgestone?
Shannon,
Okay.
I'm gonna go to the Office Depot after this. I'm gonna buy these little stickers. They were pink and yellow and blue, and I'm gonna bring some to you. And I'll donate them.
We, we can find some scratch and sniff stickers for you, Ron.
What I put on.
Okay,
My
so how many
schedule is
pages here
colored.
should we have on this?
Just one page?
I see like 1, 2,
Yeah,
for
there's,
I've got
Ridgestone,
at least 4.
Just recommendations, okay, that people agreed
5,
with.
6.
Or they didn't show?
Ridgestone.
I mean, there's a lot of pages for Ridgestone.
looks like some income data.
Yeah, I think what you're looking at is what the appellant originally
Gary,
submitted, so
About that
it's-
thick.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure what your top page is, but what we have is a agreed upon value of 251,200, and so that's land at 67,100, building at 184,100.
Move for approval.
Second.
We got a motion and a second for it. What's that number again? 251?
251,200.
Got a motion from Commissioner LaCroy, second by Commissioner Ross Connect. Any further discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Next on the line is Yellow Truth Dragon, one parcel.
Hello, Board. Chris Mooney, Equalization. I got a recommendation of 177,200. That's 37,000 on the land, 140,200 on the building.
Move for approval.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Further discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Okay, we've already done Matthew and Catherine Connor. The next one is Hay Camp Company. There's 5 properties here. Dawn can read the parcel number and her recommendation and make it one motion, if you choose.
Sound good to you? One
Yeah,
motion?
one motion would be fine.
Shannon, can you just give us a quick overview of what this is?
Dawn can.
Okay.
These are 5 evergreen condominium units. And the owners are John and Kathy Sunby and Johnny Sunby and then Ferbers. So parcel 61880, I have a recommendation of 119,500. Parcel 60230, I have a recommendation of 119,700. Parcel 60228, I have a recommendation of 119,400. Parcel 61870, I have a recommendation of 128,200. And parcel 60234, I have a recommendation of 118,200.
Just
I didn't break it down. Shame on me, but the land is 9,600 and I didn't bring a calculator. Can
On
I?
all of them?
Yeah, the land's
All
all
of
the
them is
same on them.
9,600.
I don't have a calculator. I don't have my phone.
Well, that can be done after this.
Actually, I can give them to you.
So is there a motion?
Move for approval.
Got a motion and a second. Commissioner LaCroy and Commissioner Lassiter.
Can I-
Further discussion, yeah?
Yeah, I'd just like to know what their issue was, and was it the land, was it the building, was it an income? I'd just like to understand where the compromise was, so if we have another one like this, I can use this for a reference.
Okay, so the assessments did go up this year. So it was basically just an increase from last year's assessment. The county board, or excuse me, the local board did lower them, and I did have a couple of recommendations to bring 2 of them down, but the other 3, I wanted to uphold our original assessments. They just felt that due to financing issues, the units wouldn't sell for the assessed values.
Okay.
But the sales that I used came right from within the unit, the evergreen condominium units, so.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Okay, I've got a motion and a second. Did I? Yeah. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
I will interrupt to say that if any of you have questions about any of these properties after the meeting, our appraisers will talk to you. So, it certainly answers the questions here, but if you want more information,
Okay.
find us afterwards. Okay, so we've already done Larry and Marcia Noble. Then we go to Donna Morris.
Hi, my name's Katie. The subject property tax ID is 66218. I'm recommending the value of 83,500 with 20,000 on the land and 63,000 on improvements.
Move for approval.
Second.
I've got a motion and a second here. Let me understand this a little bit. I don't see these numbers. So Katie, tell me the numbers again.
83,500 total, 20,000 on the land and 63 on improvements. Sorry, 63.5.
I see it now.
Yep.
Okay. Any further questions? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Real Winning LLC.
We have an agreement with the owner to change the value of the land to $54,200 and the building to $19,300 for a total valuation of $73,500.
Move for approval.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Motion by Ross Connect, second by Commissioner LaCroix. Any further questions? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Gil and Tammy Hammer.
Hello, board. Chris again. I have a recommendation on this property, and the owners are in agreement with it. I'm recommending a total of $169,400. That is $38,000 on the land and $131,400 on the structure.
Move for approval.
I've got a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
This has got to read the total.
I got a motion from Commissioner LaCroix, second from Commissioner Laster. Question was on the total again?
$169,400.
Okay.
159,400.
No, but 169.
169.
69.
Yep.
Let me get this straight. 161.
169,400.
169,400.
Too many numbers.
Yeah, I don't see that number was on anything here, so.
It's raised from the city value, what the city did back in Rapid. After looking at the property and looking at sales, came up with the 169,400, and the owners are in agreement with that value.
Did you have that on the documentation that went to the commissioners?
Apparently
It's
not.
just been the, yeah, it's on there.
The original value, then what happened at boards, at local board level, and then his value is higher than what local board.
But they don't have that number. Since we've provided the information to the commissioners, he's looked at the property and talked to the property owner, so that could have happened after you got that
Yeah, that could have
paperwork.
happened after.
And anytime we've ever done this, anytime they lowered it, lower than the value, they didn't always put it back on here. It's just, like I said, they've talked to them in between there, like in the last day, even sometimes in the last hour. And then they come back and recommend if it's lower. It never comes back when they come back and say, okay, it's gonna be higher. It's always a lower number than what's on your paper.
Deb, when did the papers go to the commissioners? Just a guess.
Last week.
Okay, so last week sometime.
Yeah, it was after.
And so at some point in the last week, Chris has met with the property owner, looked at the property, discussed everything, but we can't change what you have already been provided.
Right.
So, yeah, you don't have that number.
So what I
Shows on here that the valuation from the assessor's office was 182.3. City of Box Elder is 161.9.
That's what the local board did, yes.
Yeah, and
And so
so, and now we're at 169.4 is what's being
okay,
recommended.
I just wondered if I was supposed to
Yeah.
be looking at this.
Yeah. does get confusing. Okay, did we have a?
Yep.
We've got a motion and a second. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
John and Cheryl Henry.
John and Cheryl Henry went to their local board in Box Elder. The Box Elder board took their value to $203,000. I went out this past Saturday and looked at their house with them, and based on what I saw on quality of construction and stuff, I have made an adjustment to their property, and I am recommending a value of $206,600. I have spoke with them, and they are okay with this. That's the land at $32,100 and the building at $174,500.
Move to approve.
Got a motion from Commissioner Ross Connect, second from Commissioner LaCroy, for $206,600. Further discussion?
So just one point. Commissioners, they've been doing this for years, and what happens is during the equalization hearings, they get more information, or the people we've actually had them go out and look at the properties, people that have came in here. And then by the afternoon, maybe having a morning appointment, by the afternoon, they came in, they let them in the property, they let them see what they had, they came back and redid it. That's why a lot of times your changes happen in between there, because then they talk to them again, well, let me look at your property, let me see what's happening. They can't really get it to you like in a couple days, so they're not trying to confuse you on your paper. What happens is the applicants will start communicating better once they find that maybe they can get their assessment lowered if they have the assessor actually look at the property. A lot of times when you have those lower ones, it's because they wouldn't let them on the property at the time. So it's not confusing to you. That's usually what happens.
It's not confusing, but excuse us if we ask questions because we're just trying to make sure that the numbers that are verbally reported match what we have. So if we ask, we're just trying to make sure that we're
Understood.
on the same page.
No, but I guess I wasn't worried about that. I'm just saying you asked why. I wasn't mad about it.
Right.
That you asked questions. That's what we're here for. But just so you knew, so it wasn't, like these guys didn't put the paper down or put the numbers down.
I'm just glad that they got it resolved so we can go through these rather quickly.
Next.
You want to vote on that, though?
The vote.
All in favor?
All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Afternoon schedule, going to Robert Griffith,
Hello, board. Chris again.
Oh, wait a minute. Where's that one?
1 o'clock, afternoon.
Yeah, the afternoon
First
one's
one on the
now.
page.
There you go.
So have we already dealt with this, we did with the Richard Morris?
Hicks.
No, that's 11 o'clock in the morning. Oh, that's Donna Morris. And I don't know where Richard Morris is. Don't know what you're looking at.
How about G6? Did we do that one?
That was morning,
Drew that.
and they withdrew.
Oh, okay.
So no appeal.
So I also have another one here of, is it Winning? W-Y-N-I-N-G?
Winning. You just acted on that.
That's the one we just acted on?
Well, a couple of them ago.
Okay.
Like 3 ago.
So the 1 o'clock, the only one we acted on was Hicks.
Hicks was here, yes. He was the only one from the afternoon.
Now we're on Griffith, and we're going down all the way down the page.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Let's see, after going out and looking at this property and collecting a bunch of data, I'm recommending that we stick with what the Box Elder Board did as far as value. After looking at it, seems like that was a fair value for what they did, considering what the interior of the house is. They're kind of redoing the interior, and that was back in October, which we didn't know was tore up. It's still tore up. So I felt that value of $214,900 was a fair value, and the owners are in agreement with that.
So moved.
So your number is what, 214?
$214,900 for a total.
So moved.
Second.
Motion from Commissioner Hadcock, second from Commissioner LaCroy. So,
we got a question.
Yeah.
well, the owner is in agreement with it, with the 214,900.
So the local board had gone to 197.
Yeah, that's
180, oh,
What's the property worth?
214,900.
And did you tell the property owner that?
Yep, and they're in agreement with it.
Okay.
so the land's 38.3 and
The land is 38,000. The building is 176,900 for a total of 214,900.
Okay.
And I've already got a motion and a second on that. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
David Williams.
Hello.
Okay, so was the Griffith Rounsley, has that been withdrawn?
We have to revisit?
Yep.
Move,
It's what?
move to
Yep,
reconsider.
wrong one. I got-
You had the wrong property?
Yes, I had the wrong property. I have an order. That was my bad.
So what do we
So
got?
many today.
He was looking at the wrong property. I'm sorry.
Yep.
Can we
about
reconsider the last property that Griffith? His number was notes for another property.
Yeah.
Move to
Okay, so do I have a,
move to
let's see,
Yep, and I'll second that. Move to reconsider.
got a motion and
right.
a second to reconsider the last property. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried.
So we're on 7562?
Yes, correct.
Yes.
All right, and this is the correct property, right? The value total is 197,800. Land 38.3, building 159,500.
And that's what the local board did.
And that's where you're at with it?
Yes.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Adcock and LaCroix. Further discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you, commissioners. You had a question about property. We're going to David Williams.
Okay,
Are we good?
good. Go.
All right. Scott Dressler from the Equalization Office. Property ID is 9395. This one, the Box Elder Board lowered the value to 146,200. After reviewing the property, there were foundation problems that we didn't have any record of. So my recommendation is a total value of $136,000. That's 17.5 on the land and 118.5 on the structures. The owner's in agreement with this value.
Move to approve.
Second.
Got a motion from Commissioner Laster, second from Commissioner LaCroix. Carrie, did you get those numbers?
Yeah, I got him.
Okay,
That was 136?
136.
136.
Any further questions? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Kelsey Hansen.
Parcel ID 56779. This one, the Box Elder Board moved the value to 148,000 after going to the property and reviewing it with the owner. My recommendation is 150,300, which is 26,000 for the land, 124,300 for the structures. The owner's in agreement with this value.
Moved.
153 what?
150,300.
150,300.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Further discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Joseph and Melissa Stanfill.
All right, this is tax ID 1319. Make sure I got that right this time. All right, now this one, I am recommending what the Box Elder
Let's go
Board did.
back 1 second here. So is Kelsey Arneson and Kelsey Hansen the same person?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry.
All right, and this one I am also recommending what the Box Elder Board went to. For a total value of 214,900. That's 38,000 on the land and 176,900 on the structures.
Move to approve.
Second.
I've got a motion and a second. So the total on that is the 214,900?
Correct.
Any further questions? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Are you sure, Chris? Just kidding.
Hayes Huddleston.
So there's three properties here. 2 of them are bare land and 1 has a structure on it. I will start with tax ID 41850.
I'm never keeping up.
And we have an agreement with the owner on these values. 12,400 on the land and 76,700 on the building for a total valuation of 89,100. Tax ID 41847 is land only, and the valuation is 18,000. Tax ID 41848, this is land only, and the valuation is $20,900.
Move for approval.
A motion by Commissioner LaCroy to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Further discussion?
One question.
Yep.
So was the property owner, they're not here, but were they okay with this, or?
They understand why the value is what it is. These are all in the crash zone, the APZ zone, and so we have a pretty significant reduction on the land already. The Box Elder Board had lowered it down to like $2,000 for the entire thing. So, but yeah, they understand the valuation. They're actually asking. It's listed right now for considerably more than what my cumulative value that I just gave you is.
I just wondered if they're not here, if we just make the assumption that they're okay with it.
Well, there could be some here that told us they wanted to show and make an argument and then didn't come. But in this case, that isn't on this property.
Okay.
But you can't assume that everybody that we make a recommendation on is happy with it. We've communicated that to them. And if they're on the list, we were assuming they were going to come here. But, that doesn't mean they're happy if they don't show up. It just means they didn't show up.
Well, that was my question.
But we have always communicated everything we tell the board, we've told that property owner, so when they show up here or don't, they know what we're going to say.
Okay.
Okay, so we've done Hicks. Then we get down to Bromer. What?
Do they need to vote?
Yeah, I don't think you guys did all in favor.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
It's actually Joe, but I just take credit for it.
Okay, so now we're at Bromer.
Yep. So Mr. Bromer has asked that we give you some email correspondence that he had with Joan in our office, the commissioner's office. And then as well, I have some stuff I had prepared. We were expecting that he would appear telephonically, but he has chosen not to do that.
This is Bromer, right?
He's chosen not to do what?
To appear.
Oh.
So Joe has a recommendation on this, just like all of the others. But there's been email correspondence right up until yesterday or maybe even this morning. And we're just trying to provide that to you so we can tell him everything you've sent has been provided to the board.
Should I go ahead or let you guys?
No, go ahead.
So the original assessment for Mr. Bromer's property at 22 Pine Street, which is 55842 tax ID, was $102,300. The local board in Wasta reduced the value to $94,200, but I am making the recommendation that we go back to the original assessment of $102,300.
So moved.
Got a motion. Is there a second? Motion by Hadcock.
Second for discussion.
Got a second from Commissioner LaCroy. Questions? So Joe, you did have the conversation that you were going to recommend this to go back to.
I did have as much as I could the conversation with Mr. Bromer. It was difficult for me to get a hold of him. And through emails, there was a couple of emails I had sent to him that he actually didn't receive for whatever reason. And then we, through Joan's help, we figured out that if we replied to his emails, that he would get them. So we were communicating that way. And he knows that I was recommending that there was no change. I mentioned in one of the emails about coming out to his property, and he preferred that I didn't do that. I did drive by it, but I have not been in the property or on the property.
Question.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner LaCroix.
So, Joe, I'm looking at this, sometimes it's hard to tell, but you say overrided value was 92,420. You know, we've had some in the past where they've came in and appealed and they've been granted, and then we go back up and they get back appealed. Is that what kind of happened with this one before too?
That is correct. Yeah, last year in 2020, the assessed value was $96,000. The local board then took it down to $92,420, which was just $80 less than his purchase price in 2017.
Okay.
And then because it was an override value, that value goes off. And then it went back to the 102,300, which is an appropriate sale price for a home in Wasta.
I agree. I think we had quite a few of these a couple of years ago where we continued to do that. And I think the motion on the floor, I'm in favor for it.
Okay, that's it. We're done for today.
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
I was like, really? We hadn't even voted yet. You almost got me there for a minute because I'm like, we hadn't voted yet, but okay. That works.
Sorry.
I'm worried it's recorded.
Gary and Deborah Williams are next.
And so this is now the Joe Show.
Yeah, Joe Show.
So this is parcel 15840. Gary and Deborah Williams, they, original assessment was $165,800. They went to their local board, which reduced it to $135,900. I went out to the property and surveyed it, and I am recommending that we stay with the local board value of $135,900.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Okay, so the number on that again was 135?
$135,900.
Any further questions? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Richard Horton.
Can you bring this one up on? The tax ID is 15833.
Give us 1 second here. Trying to catch up.
And then go to that arrow in the middle.
What's the name on this one?
Horton / Dahlquist / Fuller.
Okay,
So then,
everybody got it?
Yep.
so this what parcel was brought to my attention. The value on this property was $30,600, and the local board reduced it to $8,000. The area in where the white stuff is actually a pasture-rated soil. This is an ag property, and its factor is quite high, and so the value on it is kind of high. After looking at this property and the soil type, I'm going to be looking at this soil type for all of the parcels throughout the county that have that same pasture-rated soil, and talking to the Department of Revenue about the value. After looking at it, I'm making a recommendation of 24,200 instead of 8,000, because 8,000 isn't realistic. That grass on the bottom is a crop-rated soil, so the 24,200 is a good value, and the taxpayer is okay with that value as well.
Move to approve.
Is okay with the 24.2?
Yes, he is.
Okay, so what was last year's?
Last year's was 22,000.
Okay,
Second.
got a motion and a second. Ross Connect and LaCroix. Any further questions? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
David Silva.
This is tax ID 64794, Mr. Selva. So again, his property went before a local board, and his house was valued at $228,200, and the local board took it down to $75,000. Wow. And when I called him and talked to him about this, he winters in Arizona. He said, that's pretty low. And I was like, yes, it is. So after going out and looking at the property, he was in Arizona, but I did go through it. There is some issues with the roof that he needs to be replacing it. So I have opened a permit for this property, and he's planning on fixing the roof by putting a metal roof on this summer. And I'll go out and check that out and remove that cost to cure. So I'm recommending a value of $201,100.
So move.
So is this owner
Second.
occupied?
What?
Owner occupied? Does he live there? I mean,
Yeah.
is full-time
When he's not wintering
resident? Okay.
in Arizona.
So is that land and?
Does not own the land. The land is owned by his brother-in-law,
Okay, so the 2011 would just be for the dwelling.
just for the house. That's
Okay.
2011, you said?
correct.
Okay.
So I have a motion. Did I have a second?
Yes, second.
Okay, motion and second by LaCroix and Lassiter. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Mark and Jenny Patterson.
62646 is the tax ID number. Mr. Patterson had called me about his property, and he has a shed, a 16 by 16 shed on his house, on his property. And when I was there, I classified this shed as a guest house because it kind of looks like that from the outside. And that's not it. That's it right there. And after talking with him and then going back out and looking at it again, it is just a shed, so I changed the value on that. And then there was another building that they removed. And so I'm recommending a value of $245,700.
So move.
Second.
Got a motion from Commissioner LaCroix, second from Lassiter, for 245,700. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried.
And the last one is Michael and Rose Ludeman.
We brought this back from the local board where the local board had set the value of the home to $85,000, which perhaps that is okay, but we didn't know why they did it. There wasn't any explanation in the minutes, so I tried to contact them to find out why. I called them a couple of times. I drove out there and took a picture and left a door hanger. I think if you go to the next picture, you can see the door hanger in the fence because I wasn't sure about that dog. Right where it says fetching, right there, that yellow piece of paper is a door hanger that I.
Looks friendly.
Yeah. What is it, border collie?
I've been there before, and the dog that was there was really barking a lot, and I was just freaked out. So anyway, I'm recommending that we go back to $95,500, which is our original assessed value on that mobile home.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Adcock and Lassiter. Further discussion? So Joe, you did talk to him?
I have not talked to them.
Haven't talked to him.
I never, they did not, the phone didn't even go to a voicemail, just rang, no answer. So then it went out, left the door hanger, and they have not called me.
Okay, so do we know why the local board had reduced it?
No, the minutes do not explain why they did that. I'm guessing there must be something about the home that I need to know about, but
Okay.
I don't know.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried.
Okay, that's it for today. So we've got Monday and Friday. We're working on